Yeah, and another wonderful episode that is on the horizon. The Fat Cats podcast yet again. There is someone in particular that has made a return after a particular hiatus. And also we have royalty. I don't know if it's Uganda Rugby royalty or it's just SMACK royalty, but we're yet to find out. My name is Ruben Kihumuro, and on this particular episode, the person that we are bringing on, of course, apart from Caesar, for those that don't know, we have, this person is a lecturer in the Department of the Civil and Environment Engineering with Chambogo, a consultant with the World Bank on the project of the TVET policy in 2019. He has written a number of books that are used on the secondary and university levels as a reference. Also a person who is a patron of the Uganda Technical Subjects Teachers Association. I don't know how he does all these things, by the way. Also president of the Uganda Canoe Federation, council member of the Uganda Olympics Committee, former chairman, Uganda Schools Rugby Association, executive member of the Uganda Rugby Union, team manager, Uganda Under-19 rugby team. With us, Mr. Ronald Mutebi. Welcome to the Fat Cats podcast.
Thank you so much.
I know there are so many things I probably missed in there. Are there any other particular things?
Actually, you say too much.
I've said too much.
You say too much.
Hey.
But thank you.
They told us that there's a time we got some feedback that when you invite someone, you have to make sure all their titles, or at least most of them, are mentioned. People did not go to school or work hard for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah?
Thank
But
you so much.
welcome for being with us here. How are you, generally, before we even get into anything?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to be back to, rugby, in the rugby circles. It's good to be here, talk about rugby. And thank you guys for really inviting me to this podcast.
Caesar.
I followed the last one where you had Godwin.
Yes.
And I enjoyed what I saw.
Okay.
So when you called me, I said, I have to be there.
Okay, the one with Godwin had a number of mixed feelings with it. Some people felt like we should have maybe asked harder questions. I don't know what they wanted. They wanted us to put him on the wall and say, answer this question.
No, it was good. It was
good. Yeah, anyway. Caesar, where have you been hiding?
Live.
When was the last time you were on the podcast?
A long time ago. The first game of Rugby Africa, where I was
Yes.
very excited.
That is not a traditional podcast. That is just a review.
No, the normal podcast, no. I've not even done a podcast at Gardens.
Really?
I haven't.
This
Not
is
one.
your first?
Yeah, it's my first. It's my very, very first one. I was at the former venue. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be here with Mr. Mutebi. I've been dying for this podcast.
Why?
Especially
Why
because...
in particular?
Oh, let's not go there. I'm just happy. I'm just happy because... I don't know, to very many of us, it's like a father to us. Everything I know in rugby is Mr. Mutebi.
I'm going to ask you to pull that thing a little bit
You're not
up.
hearing me?
No, I can hear you, but I just for my own sanity, so that I make sure that I don't miss anything you say. You usually have
a microphone.
you usually have very viral moments. We don't want to miss them, and there is one we are going to address later on in this podcast. But maybe just to start from there, what Caesar said, you are someone that he holds in high regard, and it's a sentiment that goes along with so many of people in rugby, especially SMACK, but also not only SMACK, that the impact that you've had on their lives. When you meet these people and they say such things about you, how does that make you feel?
I'm humbled. I'm
You're
humbled. Yeah. I meet most of my my former students, and for me it's always humbling. And SMACK was a family. It's a family, and we've stayed together. I always get messages from people like Caesar and all the others when there are challenges, about their careers, about their lives. When most of them are getting married, I'm invited.
Hey.
So it's always humbling to be appreciated by young souls that you touched.
Yeah. And of course, you talked about marriage. Congratulations, Caesar.
Hey. Yes.
This is
This
your
is the
first
one
official podcast.
Thank you.
After the honeymoon.
Yes. How does it feel now?
Very settling.
Very settling.
Yeah. let me use that term, because if I go to the other ones, you will ask very many other questions that I may not be able to answer, but it's very, very settling. Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we've read a couple of positions, titles, accomplishments. But who's Mr. Mutebi outside all the titles? First of all, even before you answer that, I want to say you do justice to the saying that teachers never grow old, man.
Because he looks the same.
Man, I was like,
I'm old, guys.
When I was entering and I saw him, and I'm like, he looks the same, man. I don't know.
There's gray hair in my head.
Yeah, but you look the same. You've not put weight. You've not.
I wonder what teachers use.
I really don't know.
I think it's because we stay busy. But your question, Ronald, outside all those titles, is just a passionate guy. I'm just this person who is passionate on anything I set my eyes on. Ronald is a family man, married and with 5 kids. I spend most of my time, free time, with my family. Then Ronald is into teaching, like you said. I love teaching. Sometimes I'm teaching subjects in schools, I'm teaching at universities, but I'm also teaching in sports. Even right now, when we were Caesar, before we came onto this show, I like to be teaching him something. So he'll share with you while I was teaching. So the Ronald, outside all those titles, is a Ronald that loves teaching.
What is that one particular thing when they say Mr. Mutebi that comes to mind for you?
Rugby.
Rugby.
It has always been rugby for me. And he used rugby. At school, he used rugby in his own way to nurture us, both in a very harsh way and a very good way. So every time you were having these meetups and all that stuff, and you remember, so you can watch a rugby game, for example, and you find a senior team in the club can't pass, can't do basic rugby. And Mr. Mutebi we almost used to name him basic rugby guy, because it always used to, like, for example, there was a time when we formed a sevens drift drill with the greatest team for me in my life in SMACK rugby, and we would drift, and we would never do a lot. We were small guys, but we never do it, but we were drifting in sevens, and we had these nice jerseys that Mulo got us. So we would drift, and it was a small thing, but that's all we did at training. Train how to drift. Just a basic. And for me, as in life, there are certain things, values and principles that we just jump over. But yet when you do them and master them, you don't need to be a genius. And for me, that's what I think about. Also, he's a doctor of philosophy. You didn't put it in that long list.
Please don't add it now.
He's a doctor of philosophy. He's Dr. Mutebi now. So congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
for me, it's that for me. It's I don't know. Every time I see him, I just see a person who used something he was passionate about to instill some values in us.
Now, after all the hard work and everything, the efforts that you've put into rugby, why did you seemingly take a step back or a step aside?
Well, I was hoping to avoid that.
There's no way you could avoid that.
Because I've dodged it every time it was being asked, why did you take a step back? It's a big story, but I'll summarize it. Yes, I put in a lot, and we were talking with Caesar earlier. I miss rugby. I am in rugby. I watch, but I miss the action. But I had to take a step back at the time I did, because, I am a firm believer in winner takes it all. Winner takes it all. At the time I left, William Blake, there was a transition from the era of William Blake to the era of Andrew Wall.
Yeah, Andrew Wall, yeah.
We shall get in that later. But when Andrew Wall took over, I had a meeting with Andrew Wall, a candid man-to-man meeting. And what I wanted was, I wanted his vision for schools rugby. And we had a meeting of about 3 hours at the Secretariat. And in that meeting, he made it clear what his direction was. And I felt I didn't agree with that direction. And that the best thing for me to do at the time was to step aside, because we would clash. I was so passionate about schools, and I knew his direction was not going to be a good one for schools. So I did the honorable thing. I stepped aside. It's not something I wanted to do, but because he had just taken over, it was his time, and I didn't want to antagonize his time. I took a step.
So now, with your sentiment at the time that maybe you didn't agree with some of the ideologies that he had, and now looking at it from a side, now you're looking at it from a spectator's point of view, not from someone who's inside. Do you think you were justified with what you thought earlier on? Is that what has come to pass with schools rugby and rugby in general in Uganda?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. Some time back, Caesar invited me to come and give a talk. And I told him at the time I couldn't. I told him I love to, but I couldn't because I didn't want, I'm this type of person who doesn't want to kill my own child.
Yeah.
And I always took, schools rugby was like a child. I'm a parent in some ways. But after having a wider look at everything, I realized if people like me don't come up to say the truth, then we're going to lose it. I was absolutely right to step aside, and my fears have come to pass. Schools rugby has gone from the glory days to something I can't even describe. We can shy away and cover our heads. People are trying to cover their heads and trying to pretend like all is well, but all is bad. It's very bad. And what's bad is not just schools rugby, it's the future of rugby, because there are no young trees coming through. So once these old trees fall, there will be no forest. And that's what is worrying people like me. And that's why when you ask me, I say yes. The reasons why I step aside, my fears have come to pass. And now I'm here to say we need as a country to address the issues before it's too late, before we get to a moment where we can't have even players play for clubs, because we are getting there very soon. If you're keen with what is coming through schools, we are getting to a point where there is not going to be, clubs won't be able to have players to play in the clubs.
Okay, so what was your first encounter with rugby ever?
Wow, that's a question that I know Caesar is burning too. Everyone has been asking where I started rugby. Let me put it on record. I never played rugby.
Okay.
Never. I never played. Not even at a small level.
I tried to do my homework. I didn't find any.
No, I never played rugby.
You know the interesting thing about trying to do your homework on him is he shares the names with the Kabaka. So remember the Kabaka played some rugby. It's like, is it Kabaka or is it Mr.
Actually,
Mutebi?
I was when you were reading my CV, I was shocked. He was saying things I've not made public. So now I understand he's been digging a lot. So I never played rugby, and but my first encounter with rugby was actually in England.
Okay.
I have a couple of friends who we've been friends for many years, and they would come here and visit me, and then I would go visit them, stay with them in the UK.
Yeah.
And this is a family that loves rugby, so we would go to a club called USRA Rugby. This is way back actually, before even I became a teacher, before I started teaching, back in my university days. So I would stay with them and we would go to USRA Rugby. And at USRA Rugby, I would see the sport being played. I didn't even understand how to count it. I didn't understand how it's played. But slowly by slowly, I started understanding. So when we came to Uganda, I started going to the then Kampala Rugby Club.
Yeah.
So that's where my interest begins. And when now SMACK comes for me from Ginger, I was a sportsman. I was into basketball. I was in charge of basketball in Eastern Uganda and table tennis. Actually, I spread the game of basketball in most of the schools in Eastern Uganda. So when SMACK picked me, they picked me as a sportsman. So they brought me to help with sports. And when I arrived, Brother Bukenya said, our main sport here is rugby. You're in charge.
How do you get to just be a new teacher and you're given a responsibility of the biggest sport in the school? Usually, I don't know how it happens in SMACK. For us at the Great College of Namilyango.
Great. Here we go again. Fat Cat Stroke Namirango podcast.
We are going to hear that a lot tonight.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, they don't just give that responsibility to anyone, especially a new teacher.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just understanding what the brother saw in you to give you that responsibility.
Okay, to get to that, you have to get to how they got me.
Yes.
I was, like I said, I was a sportsman, a very good and passionate sportsman with a school called College Kisubi.
Yeah.
Now, we'd been to tournaments where I would interact with the sports department of SMACK. And they liked the sports department. That was the late Mr. Kafumbe Douglas, who was in Nabisunsa, and Mr. Katabula Philip, now he works with UWEC. They fell in love with how passionate I was with basketball. And when they told Brother Bukenya about that, Brother Bukenya came for me because he wanted to beef up his sports department. And when I arrived and we had a chat was like 1 hour in his office. He was so impressed. He asked the rest to leave and he said, you know what, I want to put you in charge of our number one sport. Just like that. On the first day in SMACK, he handed me the rugby team. Yeah, and the rest is history.
History, as they say.
Caesar, what was your first experience with Mr. Mutebi?
Mr. Mutebi, our first experience with Mr. Mutebi was, rugby was a big sport. Is a big sport in SMACK. And
Is it still?
Rugby,
It
is. But you see, at our time in S1, I knew nothing. See, I was coming from Liantonde, where I never knew. All I knew was Manchester United. My first encounter of rugby was 2003. I can make you laugh. 2003 World Cup final. That's the very first game I watched. England. See, I'm an England fan.
Yes.
I follow England everywhere. Even if I'm watching darts by mistake, I'll support an English something.
Speaking my mind.
Yeah. So when I was on TV, there was nothing to watch, so I put on this channel, Sport 1.
England versus
And there's
Australia.
England versus Australia. I was like, let me watch. I didn't know what. I just was supporting England. Turns out it's the only World Cup we've ever won. So I was like, what is this? But then I charlied. I left it, and then I entered SMACK. And our first assembly, the SMACK, that week we're playing Namilyango. The SMACK captain, the rugby captain, spoke before the HP, the head prefect. And I was like, during the orientation, the first thing they were telling us how the HP is this great man, but there's a man who is holding more. I was like, what the hell is this? It was too much. And then Mr. Mutebi spoke after him. I was like, on Sunday, it was a Sunday. On Sunday, I don't want to see anyone in Dome. I said, that was my first encounter with Mr. Mutebi. He told us, I don't want to see anyone in Dome. Of course, I didn't care about rugby.
It was a derby.
It was a derby, and I was reading Tom Sawyer. I'll never forget. I was reading Tom Sawyer and Fon Chiumuro. Chiumuro was a player at that time and was in S6. He slapped me. What are you doing here? Why are you not watching rugby? I didn't know anything. He ensured I go down, remove my shirt and be in a vest and sang. That was my first encounter with Mr. Mutebi. That fear, I had this fear of him because, and then I joined rugby. That's another story for another day. I went to play basketball because, at that time I was surprisingly tall, and went to play rugby, but I got a bit marginalized. So I said, why don't I go to play rugby? And sometimes would come. There was a pitch we used to play S1s and S2s. Survival pitch. And then he would be training, and then he comes and stands there after the school team has done, and stands there. And we'd never noticed, but the Sonnies, who were in S2 at that time, every time he would stand there, rugby would change. We were playing pretense rugby. If you stood there, guys are starting to beat you properly. Then I knew maybe these guys were, in a way, auditioning for their. It was unbelievable. So that's my first experience with Mr. Mutebi.
Well, that's very interesting. But of course, for all those that are watching us, we're at the Gardens, Nigeria, a very, very serene space here. As you can see, they have this open area where you can also have your private parties, but also you can enjoy their weekly theme days. Of course, there are Tuesdays having quiz, Wednesday having reggae, Thursday having rock night, and Friday having the all experience. And of course, going into the weekend. And every last Saturday of the month, they do have the East Africa Meat Carnival. So that is something you should look out for. The September edition is this Saturday. Depending, of course, on when you watch this podcast, but the September edition is on the Saturday, 28th of September. So look out for that, of course. A variety of food from the whole of East Africa and a variety of music as well from the whole of East Africa. But now, I want to pick your mind. Of course, I've never been to SMACK. Interestingly, I'll maybe give you guys this one. My first choice was SMACK.
Everyone's I was in S2. Yeah. Aredo Joseph, please, you're next to. Please, if you watch this,
Yeah, some things happened in between there, and I could not get to SMACK. But I just want to understand from a culture point of view, paint for me that picture. Maybe let me start with you, Mr. Mutebi. Paint for me that picture of how rugby in SMACK is and how it ties into culture, because for us it was intense, like you were saying, from that first day, games and everything, it was quite a thing.
Maybe now that we're in confession period, let me also make a confession. Mm-hmm. I think I'm the only teacher in this country, I'm not quite sure, but I think I am the only teacher who has taught in SMACK and Namilyango at the same time and been the head of department in both schools at the same time.
Interesting.
So I am Ngonian as well as a SMACKist, but I'm more of a SMACKist.
You're more of a SMACKist. You used to just come this side to
make money. No, but honestly, Namilyango is also a good. I understand both cultures, and I understand how rugby is in both schools. SMACK is slightly different from Namilyango. In SMACK, rugby is like religion. In Namilyango, like I've said, I was in both schools, so I would see in class. In Namilyango, the boys want you to first talk about rugby. I remember that class of these guys, the Davis. Davis was one of the top players. That was way back. I don't know. I think that is 2010 or 2000. No. That is 2009. 7, 8.
Yes.
Chiwalabi.
Yeah.
7.
Davis Chiwalabi.
Davis, yes.
Yeah.
And these guys, you come to class to teach, and they're like, Mr. Mutebi, let's first talk rugby. 10 minutes. And if you don't do that, they're all pissed with you. They are pissed, literally. So I have to talk rugby for fair. Then I have to, they used to make me say this thing, we want you to say that Namilyango is better than SMACK. Then when I would refuse, they're like, then we don't have a class today. So that gave me a feeling of how Namilyango rugby was. In Namilyango, it was more of a do or die. It was, but in SMACK, it was a faith. I'm Catholic. Even if I don't go to church, nobody will kill me. But it's my faith.
Yes.
It's my faith. So in SMACK, rugby was like religion. It's like silently, everybody professes the religion. Yes. That's why even those who would come to SMACK to play other sports, Ivan Magomu was a footballer. Actually, he was on a football scholarship in SMACK. Mbare Heroes. He came from the academy. They brought him to SMACK. They told us about this kid who was good in football. From Mbare Heroes, came senior one. I went to watch him play football, and he was running very well. So I got the boys. I said, that should be a rugby player. And that's how we recruited Ivan.
If you remember, it was me and Kara Victor that you told.
I told them, I want that kid in
Victor.
rugby. Make sure tomorrow you give him a rugby ball, and I would give you a ball to sleep with in the dormitory. Now I'm coming for you. So rugby in SMACK was more of a religion. And everybody believed, like everybody. That's why even on assembly is not complete if you don't talk about rugby.
It wasn't. It was funny, but it wasn't.
They want to hear what's the lineup playing on the weekend. You have to read the lineup. So and so will be starting. Then they are clapping. A few Form 4s have some of their players. Then they are shouting. Yes. So
that was very interesting. Caesar, tell me a little bit about some of the in-school rivalries and also maybe some of the privileges that that were there for rugby players.
See, of course, the privileges for rugby players. Generally, SMACK was a good school, so every life was a privilege. But
You guys have your issues.
rugby players, just let me just not go to school authority and students. Let me just talk about students. Man, rugby players. We had a guy, Timo. He's a ref now. Timothy. He's a ref now in the Uganda Rugby Ref Society, or whatever it's called. Timothy in S1 came from Rukunjiri, like me, a village. But he was a hard man. He was a hard. Do you know hard? Clearly, Timothy dug somewhere in his 7th bar. So he came to Mr. Mutebi one day in S1 third term and told him that I wanted to play rugby.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mutebi was like, you're still young, you have time. The guy insisted. So Mr. Mutebi did the undoable. Took an S1 for East Africa Games in Tanzania. By the time Timothy came back in S2, even the S4s were not talking to him normally. That was rugby. That was rugby. It gave you a status. It gave you a status. Our change of captain, a very funny thing. Kagugube played some rugby in Heathens, was a captain. Then he handed over captaincy to Kawazi Paul, best rugby players I've ever watched. That event happened on assembly. Brother Headmaster was there. It happened. That's how much rugby was held in high regard. So if you are a rugby player, just a rugby player was enough to give you that impetus around school. Yeah? And then if you became a rugby superstar, even some rules would never, Mr. Mutebi, Magom had some indiscipline issues in school. Some indiscipline issues in school. Some few. Wow. Some few. And teachers would be on logos with Mr. Mutebi. But Mr. Mutebi, but if Magom didn't call you his father, I don't know. Mr. Mutebi would protect. But because he was a rugby player, and I think it was even worse in Namiliango, because you guys, I think you think rugby is the world. But anyway, you guys, my point is, a rugby player in SMACK was such a privilege, that you would have basketball players, very good basketball players, who would play rugby. You get? Who would play rugby. They would train rugby, then after the rugby session, they would go and play basketball. It was such a huge privilege to be a rugby player. I wasn't the best in rugby, but I found my ways. Privilege is like traveling. The biggest thing we wanted to do outside Interact was to travel on rugby outings. But it was so hard. It was so hard. Confessions. I paid close to 50,000, which at that time was my entire pocket money for the term.
To go where?
To watch a schools league game.
Which year was
final.
Yes,
a final.
Thingy. Form 1.
And then you guys lost in the
We lost. Then next 2, I watched, we paid heavily. To go and watch.
I'm going to be charged for
yes.
Okay. It was, he didn't know.
This is a clarifier.
He didn't know. It was entirely a students' association.
Yes.
Entirely. So how do you deal with it? I joined Confessions. I joined technical drawing. Mr. Mutebi was a brilliant technical drawing teacher.
Thank you.
I did technical drawing in S3. When I joined that class, Mr. Mutebi, I think because of that, he would get some time to talk about rugby. This is what we are going to do. This is what we're doing. Guys who play football, they are wasting their time, but for us, we are happy. Ever since I joined technical drawing, Mr. Mutebi would see me in his class. If he sees me at the gate on the bus, Caesar, come in and we go. That my life changed. That's why I did TD in O-level.
Because of rugby.
Because of rugby, which is one of those memories I was supposed to talk about. But anyway, my point is, it's like that.
If I can clarify something, Caesar, I'm so glad he's in management. Caesar was a manager from Senior 1. He was. He had this bossy. He's this kid you couldn't avoid. Like he would be giving you ideas. Mr. Mutebi, I think we'll do this. He would tell you about players. No, and this was useful information. He would come and tell you, so and so is lazy in training. Trainings you've missed. So I took Caesar as like more of a de facto assistant. So he never missed a bus. So I'm surprised he paid money.
S1.
But it wasn't to me.
S1, the final. I won't mention people because they are known in the rugby.
Don't mention.
Don't mention. But yeah, the privilege of just traveling, the privilege of walking around the aura that you had as a rugby player, no other sport in school had it. And that's why he called it our main sport. Because we had brilliant basketball players. We had brilliant football players. No one cared a tad bit about them because they didn't play rugby. That's for us.
It's true.
Very interesting when you guys talk about paying to travel for rugby games. For us, it was more about who do you know, who's your friend, what can you offer to the older students. Take, for instance, if you had a beautiful sister, can you introduce the sister? Yes, there would be a,
To the
do you have
captain.
a siso? Yeah. What's the under, especially if it was like in Namagunga, Gayaza, and Isunsa, you're guaranteed. Somehow,
trip.
even when you don't want to go,
They will-
now you be there and you don't have any of those things.
It was
You will
really
stay at
funny.
school even during holidays
Yeah.
if possible. But anyway, how would you describe SMACK's style of rugby?
SMACK style of rugby is, if I may start from an example, okay? If you look at the way New Zealand plays, and you look at the way South Africa plays, okay? Now, New Zealand pays attention to detail. Every pass, you feel like you have this feeling that pass has been practiced 1,000 times on the training ground before that day.
Yes.
Everything they're doing, it looks like it's somewhere in the textbook, and then you just get it out on that very day. And that would be SMACK rugby.
Okay.
In SMACK, and it's not something it's not credited to me. I found it there. I just built on it. In SMACK, the rugby was not so much about winning. People took it that every time we lost to Namiliango, we would cry. No.
You just tell us to wait for November.
No. People say we used to cry. Yes, we used to be sad. I'll give you an example. The finals of 2006. We lost that game. Fred Mudola was coaching Namiliango. I was coaching SMACK. We lost that game. And my head teacher, Brother Bukenya, was very sad. Everyone, the parents were sad, the players were sad. And then Fred Mudola walks from his bench and comes to me. I'm seated. Namiliango is celebrating. My players are crestfallen. He comes to me and shakes my hand and says, Ronald, you did a good job. That was good rugby. That was good rugby. This is Fred Mudola. He came and shook my hands and said, that was good rugby. So when we went back to SMACK, I told my boys, look, we've lost it. But Namiliango, any honest person who watched us play today, we did a good job. That was the team of Kavazi,
Felix
Lubega, and all those guys. So SMACK rugby was the winning came second to how we played. We used to care so much about how beautiful we play, how nice it is. Actually, we used to call it the SMACK Kawowo. So you would take the points. Namiliango would win, but would go back celebrating how we made them look silly on the pitch. So SMACK rugby was attention to detail. That's why he was telling you, on the training ground, for us, it used to be so much about the basics. The basics. We would rehearse something like 10 times on a given day. And for us, that was very important. And you see all these players, the few who managed to stay within rugby, SMACK players somehow just leave. They've just left. That's a talk for another day. But the few who have stayed, if you look at them, you look at people like Kasito, Kisiga, people like this other guy, Ivan Magomu. When you look how they play, look at their basics. For example, how they pass the ball in close quarters, how they keep the ball running, how their decision making when in attack. All that traces its roots back to the SMACK ground, because our style, we would emphasize. For me, you would score a try, but if the build-up wasn't good, it wouldn't count for much.
Do you think that flair is still there in today's SMACK team or the SMACK teams of recent? This is a question to both of you guys.
A bit, but not so much. Rugby has changed, and one of my sad moments about rugby in SMACK. Before, I feel like a lot happened. Trust me, we've won 2 leagues after Mr. Mutebi left school. And of course, the one of 2019 was my highlight because we silenced legends. But even when you win, you feel it. I have a problem, and I always talk about it when I go to SMACK. I have a problem when you can't. We were always the smallest team in school, smallest. But Ortega Daniel, up to now is one of the smallest rugby players, but he was unbelievable in defense. A simple basic like tackling. Now I get bothered when someone can't pass a ball left and right, can't tackle. You get. So we win and we lose, but rugby has been so much influenced by heathens and Chadondo rugby. Everyone wants to stool everyone. Before we would clap for passes and switches, now we clap for stools, and it's not only in club rugby, it's affecting schools rugby. And also because Namilyango dominated for a long time, and unfortunately their rugby is rudimentary. So if you're on top, everyone gets influenced by you. To beat Namilyango, you have to beat Kanyama.
You should visit the college and see the trophy cabinet.
Yeah, not that one, undisputed. Most successful team.
Okay. Guys, you're beef. Eh?
Okay.
Now,
We're
I think the question shouldn't be whether SMACK still plays the same style. The question should be about schools rugby, style of schools rugby. I watched the finals, the last finals, Namilyango won.
Yes.
They were live streamed.
Yes.
I don't know whether by you or
Kao Sports.
I followed. I watched the entire second half, and I was very disappointed. Very. I remember calling my former colleague, Mr. Katablao, to give me the number of the current games teacher so that I can log in my official complaint. And he gave me, and I called the games teacher. I told him, that's not SMACK I saw there, and that should not be happening in SMACK. That's not. SMACK lost, but the level of the game, both teams, was horrible. Go back, and I think it's still on YouTube.
Can we attribute that to the conditions on the day also?
There were times we played in rain. Several times Namilyango and SMACK have played in rain. And that was not an excuse. Both teams, not just SMACK. Even Namilyango, the victors of the day. The quality was so terrible. That was never a SMACK Namilyango derby. So, in terms of style, the quality is so down. It's so terrible. The game between SMACK and Namilyango at Kampala Rugby Club, or today's Legends, would be a game that would be at the level of Cobb's Pirates. Cobb's Pirates. It would be at that level in terms of technical skills. This is where clubs would just be fighting for players. This is how the likes of Chimono, they just walked into clubs. There was no transition. It was just the Magomus, the Philip Wokorach. The levels, the styles have gone down. It is so low. Not just for SMACK, but all schools.
If I was to ask you to name your top 5 SMACK players that you've ever encountered from that time, is this something you can name?
Damn.
Hey.
You know, like that's a very, I know lots of SMACK players, OBs are watching this, and it's a hard one for a parent. You know, when you ask your dad, who are your favorite kids?
Who's your favorite kid? There's always a favorite one, but they try not to say it. But today we have put you on the spot.
It's very hard. But I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to go back. If I am to name the 5, everyone would be surprised because some of them are names you've not heard of.
Okay.
Because they never played after SMACK. People think Ivan Magomu was my darling child. He was my darling child, but I can't say he was my very best.
Okay.
I would place him in second. He was one of those kids I loved so much. Up to today, I love him. Recently, Ivan has been having issues. They hurt me a lot. And I made lots of phone calls because of Ivan. Because for me, Ivan is a son. It's more like I felt he was being tortured. And I made calls to some people and said, I lodged my protest. I said, I think you're being unfair. But it's not Ivan in number 1. It's a kid called Wakadala.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether viewers have even heard of that name.
There
was a kid who was called Wakadala. Wakadala never got to play rugby to club level, but he had exceptional talent. Every time I sleep, I think of what we missed as a country because that kid was just on another level. In senior one, he was a fly half for his senior one team. And senior one was playing, we used to have interclasses. Senior one was playing senior 3, and the kid scored 3 tries. I was watching. I called the kid. I moved him from senior 1 to train with senior 2. On that team, they were playing senior 4. He scores 4 tries as a fly half. It gets to a time when he was in senior 2, we didn't have a fly half. We were struggling, literally struggling. I was experimenting with everybody. And then the boys were like, Mr. Mutebi, let's just try that kid. I remember it was Budo. Budo was visiting SMACK. And I tell this kid to put on his uniform, senior 2 first term. He just changed the game for us in such a beautiful, I have not seen a person play fly half like that kid. So in number 1, it would be that. I think in number 2, it's Ivan. Ivan, I think.
I know. I also even have a quotation here, a quote here of you talking about Ivan. I think this was when he was named captain of the country. I think it's a Kao quote where you say, I got to know the news on a Tuesday, and I was excited for him. Ivan is my son. He calls me Papa. Papa. Mutebi said, it's a quotation. Mutebi said that on Kao Sports. He's a born leader, and from the time I identified him as a player in senior 1, I could see he was a good leader. That's something you said.
I think they quoted me right. They quoted me right. So Ivan comes in there at number 2. But now Ivan is special because Ivan is the one I've stayed with all through. But there have been a couple of other kids, a couple of other players. Casito.
You put Casito at number 3?
He's in the top 5. I don't know where in that top 5. Right. Casito is special because I caned Casito when he was in senior 6. I know he's going to watch this and he will be furious. But it was in front of the entire team, the entire school. Casito was a scrum half, and we were going to play Namilyango on the weekend. And the strategy that time was we needed to move the ball fast, because Namilyango was very aggressive in the tackle. So we wanted the ball to move so fast within the phases. And as the scrum half, he was central to that style. And then Casito kept on being sluggish. No, he was senior 5. He was senior 5. He just come back. They just reported back. So he was being so sluggish. I got so pissed. I told him, Casito, I want the ball. I want those transitions to be fast. Get the ball recycled before Namilyango rearranges. And Casito, I felt like he was just refusing what I was saying. I stopped training. There are students watching. The whole school is watching. Because school team training was a school team thing. The whole school is there watching, training. I get a cane. I walk to the pitch. I tell him to go down. And everyone was like, I tell him, you either go down, I cane you, or you're off my team permanently. And this is what I loved. Even up today, I love about Casito. I knew he was going to protest and walk away. He just went down, and I gave him 2. And he stood up, told him, I want a quick ball. Casito has never been slow from that time. I see him in 7s, and I'm like, wow, look at that speed.
Legend has it that Casito is still running away from your Chibuk.
No, he's not running away. He's not running away. So Casito would belong in that. Of course, Kabazi makes the top 5. Kabazi was unique. It's a shame he never played long. I don't know why. Kabazi is the only player I know and I've seen in SMACK who would sleep with a ball in his bed. Kabazi Paul, Kafumisi. He would sleep with a ball in his bed, and I never understood why. He goes to bed with his ball as his pillow, and then he sleeps. And then tomorrow he comes. He was a guy of very few words, but one he was the captain he would listen. Even after training, he would sit with me to plan like the style of play. And then he's this guy who would, when things are failing, would come to you and say, we need direction. I think Chigani. So he would make that. There are other players, these are my sons. It's hard to actually pick.
I was waiting to hear Caesar's name, but anyway.
I was never. Caesar was more. Caesar was a player, but Caesar
player.
Was more
Management.
With me.
Yes.
Caesar was my assistant for, I think, was it like 3 years?
3 years.
Caesar was just sniping.
And he got to a point where Caesar would argue with me on team selection.
He would say, Caesar just wanted to go for rugby trips, get out of school. No, but I understand what you're saying about Caesar. He's actually very, even up to date when it comes to looking at SMACK Namiliango, any final SMACK is in. He can sit on one side and you can see he's not like any other ordinary alumnus or whatnot. He's the other side, just seated by himself, analyzing. He's trying to stop himself from going to the coaching area, but he's watching it from a different point of view.
He has that mind. And I will never forget when he would come to me and say, get him off. And then I'm like, wait a minute. He said, Mr. Mutebi, we are losing this game. Get that guy off. Yeah. So that
maybe just to ask, why do you think we have a very low transition rate? I want to call it a transition rate of players that are in schools rugby going into club rugby.
Yes. This is a problem that I identified by the year 2009. And I wrote a technical paper that I submitted to the technical committee of the URAU at that time. I think it was headed by Yairo Kasasa. I had been to Zimbabwe and I had seen the setup of their progression. I came back here and I wrote a paper and I said that the missing link in our setup is the University League. It's the University League. And I said, you see, if we don't have a strong and vibrant University League, then we are going to lose lots of players who are coming out of schools. Because one, a school game is very different from a club game. A club game. At the school, guys are playing for pride, like he has told you, like status. At the club level, the guy comes in and you. The guy is nobody. I mean, you're coming to a club where there is Adrian Bukenya, Man Mountain. You're coming to a club where there's Fred Mudola. I mean, who are you? You're just a decimal. So I told, in that paper I wrote, I said, we need a very strong university league so that when these guys come out of school, they are getting into the university league. They're leaving school at age 19. So they're going to have another 3 years of playing rugby before you can now get them into club rugby. They are now mature. They're at 22, 23. Now you can get them into the schools league. Now, that paper I submitted, it actually, Kasasa, I thank him, he did some good work at the time, started patching together the university league. But then somehow, funding disappeared and the university league never kicked off. And that's why you realize most of the players we have from SMACK and Budo, out of every 10, only 2 continue to play. The 8 disappear. And even in Namiliango, where at least the rate is, a good number goes up. Out of 10, you find that only 5 in Namiliango continue to play. The other 5 also disappear. They become just fans, rugby fans.
Okay.
So it's the university league.
So are you suggesting that players shouldn't be allowed to play club rugby until after university?
No. They can be allowed. Those who have merited.
Who merited, yeah.
But I'm saying those who... You see, when there's an issue of confidence. Now, let me give you an example. You're from SMACK. You've been a superstar in SMACK. Now, Pirates. You go to Pirates. Then what are you going to do? You're technically out.
Yeah.
You will sit there, you watch training, maybe you make numbers, you make running numbers, you get frustrated. Yet if you go to the university league, you again a superstar there. You're needed. So you're into the team. Now, by the time another 3 years are into you, you're good enough to walk into any club and play. I think we've lost players just because we don't have a good university league.
Okay. And yeah, definitely, yesterday was a very, very interesting one, but we felt like we needed to do a lot more when it comes to this particular conversation, so that the SMACkists, aka Weavers out there, make sure that this story is being told properly. Of course, still with Caesar Nkunda and Mr. Ronald Mutebi. But,
Dr. Ronald Mutebi.
Doctor.
Does it matter?
Should we do we have to read the titles all over again?
No. This was too long.
The titles.
Can we?
Anyway, so we were talking about SMACK and all the experience in SMACK. So I want us to first start from this point where there is a particular video in one of our previous podcasts where Mr. Caesar featured. It kind of went viral because of what he said, and he's, of course, he had a proverb that was put there. And this was the particular one.
we were forced.
With some
and I repeat,
accusations
forced
towards
only
you.
Mr. Mutebi, Ronald, forced us to support that club in KPA. Of course, some of us refused.
Man, this guy
Now,
killed me. Ankunda, you
but
really,
I
really,
left.
really
I
pulled.
left. But what I knew I used to
Anyway,
do was hate
I
Namibia.
think first,
Mm.
Ankunda broke the cardinal rule of SMACK, and I think all SMACkists will agree. Ankunda owes me, I think, we say a crate of Nile special or something in that range, because what happens in SMACK stays in SMACK. But the truth is, whatever he said was true, and call it confessions. I think I did. I did that, and I look back and I feel maybe it wasn't professional on my side. I should have let the kids make their choices. But again, when I look back, I had to do that because Pirates was home for me. Pirates nurtured me, and they supported me. When you look back, people like Ojambo, Foxy, Mbalu, Sama Hamia, Ramsey Olinga. This was my first rugby family, and I felt I needed to be part of Pirates in a special way. So it's true. I always advised my students to go to Pirates, but also for their own good, because at the time, Pirates was the team that supported development. Heathens was more of a galactical kind of team. They just went for the good guys. They had the money to go and get a guy from Corps. They get somebody from Pirates. So I felt my kids would not, fight for a place within such a setup. So, and of course, Corps was, we know, the fumblers. So the best there was Pirates.
Anyway, just on that note, of course, even I don't think it's an alien concept, because even in Namilyango, Mr. Bizimana Valence was very, very key when it comes to it was staunch Cobs in Namilyango, and if they found you with a Pirates jersey, it would be confiscated, and probably you get it at the end of the term. If you're lucky, that is, you could perhaps not get it as well, but that was the thing. But it's so different these days that you find kids have a lot of liberty to go wherever they want, maybe choose to go to Rhinos, choose to go to Cobs, choose to go to Heathens. Do you think that's a good thing, Caesar?
I think it is. I think it is. It is because at the end of the day, they judge you by your own decisions. So if we when all of our players went to Pirates, to Sailors at that time, and Pirates had some issues in management, really, if I can say that. And we always said, man, why did we come here? We're forced to be. I said it on a podcast. But had I made that decision myself to go to Sailors or to be an affiliate of Pirates, and the decision bites me, I would have. Kids now have a choice. They come, and kids play. Even now, you can tell very many kids, if you're not a staunch Cobs fan, or you don't have family that supports Cobs or Heathens, you find there's a brilliant kid in SMACK right now. He has relatives in Heathens, Roland to be exact, and the kid is in Heathens from SMACK. One of the very few that made that decision immediately. He is an affiliate of Heathens Rugby, Matthew Osasizi. So it always has other reasons now, but still Pirates still takes, like Mr. Mutebi is saying, it still takes up the most number of school kids. Why? Not because necessarily the best naturals of rugby. They are good naturals of rugby, but because, like what Mr. Mutebi was talking about earlier, University League. You find a bunch of their colleagues. So they develop into this club rugby together. You have a cohort of people like Ziwa and it's Big Gongodio, and they grew together from school. They entered Sailors. They are developing together, and they are now playing at the grand stage. The same when Magom dragged a whole lot of Namilyango players to Pirates. They grew up together. They developed together, and now they make that thing of what? So I find it, but they made their decision. It's just that the stalwarts like Mr. Viziman and Mr. Mutebi took a step aside. The stalwarts like Viziman still get bothered when if a bunch of very good Namilyango boys holding up Pirates now. But man, it's a decision, and rugby is growing. At the end of the day, we are all happy when Wanyama is vice captain of the national team rugby team. Doesn't matter that he's Ngonian or that is a Ngonian that went to Paris and didn't go to Cobs. What matters is a brilliant player. So I think it's good that it's open. I just want to see more and more school kids going to what? To Heathens. Because I want to ask. We know who was affiliated to Pirates. We know who was affiliated to Cobs. Where the hell was Heathens getting players to win all those trophies? Maybe that what Mr. Mutebi is saying.
Galacticos.
They pick from everyone who and pay. But anyway, I just like it that kids now can go anywhere. Kids can go to Mongas. We have SMACKs that are playing, the Lukwagos that are playing in Mongas. It's a beautiful thing. I think it's where I wished it was better then, because some people would have experienced the beauty that is Cobs rugby.
Maybe, Robin, to come in on that a bit, we need to go back to what the philosophy was at the time. The philosophy was we wanted to get clubs to get involved into schools rugby.
Okay.
And after Heathens failed to take SMACK at that time, Peter Magona and all the other guys at Heathens, they tried to do a coup to take SMACK by force. And when I failed that, and I had my reasons, and the reasons were we needed clubs to get down into actual nurturing of players, to send the technical. Mine was send the technical people down to the schools to nurture these players for you. Pirates had done that successfully in Budo. And when I requested Pirates, they did that with SMACK. So I asked Heathens, go to Hana and nurture your own players. You have the people, go to Hana. And when eventually Heathens goes to Hana, it was a fantastic job. Now, it was the three clubs, the three top clubs, Heathens, Pirates, and Cobs, were the ones where that was. However, the other players you're not interested in would go to the other clubs like Impis, eventually Mongas, and so on. So the philosophy, the whole idea was to have clubs participate in nurturing of players, because it's where they would get the players. We were asking them, go down there, nurture on players. Don't take a smart kid you haven't participated in nurturing. Go down and nurture your own player.
Okay, that's particularly interesting. But just looking generally at the scope of age grade rugby, from the time where you are actively involved to now, what is particularly happening with schools rugby and all rugby below the top tiers, what do you think its state is?
I don't want to use a very strong word, but I need to be honest, since we are live on this podcast. Pathetic.
Okay.
Pathetic. And I'm not saying this as to discredit anybody. It's the reality. The level of schools rugby today is pathetic. And we need to do something as a country to get back to where we were. Otherwise, we are not going to get talent coming through. You can say Caesar is even struggling to pick out just one kid in SMACK and saying there's a good kid in SMACK. It was never that. And the fact that today it's like that, one kid, means we are going to have, a drought. At that time, we even didn't know who the good kids were because everybody was good. In SMACK, you'd have like 10 kids who just walk into a club. In Amiliango, you have about 15 you feel can walk into any club and then play rugby. In Hana, you're having like another 15. In Budo, you're having. So today, if Caesar even struggles to pick one kid and say, Raymond in SMACK, it shows that where we are right now is scary. And everybody who loves rugby should be scared. Because it means, you see, once schools can't produce, clubs can't deliver. Because it's just a matter of time. You won't have the talent. You'll have the sponsors, you'll have everything, but you won't have the players to actually play rugby. So schools rugby at the moment, if you ask me, it's in a pathetic state. And the mentality that it is the school guys, people were blaming Valence, others now are blaming the current guy. That is wrong. It's not their fault. Schools is the responsibility of the Uganda Rugby Union. I'll say it again. In any country where rugby has prospered, age grade rugby is the responsibility of the responsible union. Because it's, this is the key stakeholder. this is where your future is nurtured.
Yeah.
Foundation of the building. Now you can't say, I own the house, but the foundation is not mine. Somebody will come and fix the foundation. But then you're so proud of the roof, so proud of the walls. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, well, that's particularly interesting. But also now, let's just talk a little bit about USRA. Of course, at some point, you, of course, had made that name, particularly in SMACK, spearheading rugby. How does your journey now get into Uganda Schools Rugby Association?
Now, like I told you, the head teacher gives me the SMACK team, and then I start working. The immediate concern for SMACK at the time was to win the schools league. There has been this talk, and many of you Namilyango OBs promote it, even within the rugby union, which is not true, that rugby was first played by Namilyango. I have heard it a lot. And it's not true, and there is evidence to prove it's not true. Rugby was first played by SMACK.
Really?
I know those watching this podcast are going to go hellwire, but the truth is, we did lots of research on that concept. Rugby was first replayed by Namilyango when it was coming back.
Okay.
But rugby to come in Uganda arrived in SMACK. And
Really?
it was these South African ANC refugees, the people who had run from ANC from South Africa. They were kept in SMACK. And those are the ones who first introduced the sport of rugby. So rugby was first played in SMACK. Now that was before Amin came, and rugby took that long break. And then when it came back, it was, of course, Namilyango. Now, so it was painful in SMACK that we had never won the schools league. For all the beautiful rugby, for all the talent, SMACK was the first school to win a tournament of clubs.
Okay.
The Uganda Cup. SMACK
Really?
won a Uganda Cup.
In what year was that?
You're going to go and dig within the archives of the union.
Okay.
SMACK, that is the team of I think that is the William Bleaks, those guys, that group of players. They beat, was it Kampala Rugby Club, which then became, I'm not quite sure, but they won beating a club. So for all that rugby, they had never won the league. So the immediate concern was the league, and that way I focused. However, as time progressed, we realized we were disjointed as schools. Arthur Mbalule by then was holding together the whole schools tournament, but it was not structured, it was not funded, it was not respected, it didn't have funds apart from us, the schools. It was confined to just schools in Kampala.
Okay.
Now, by then, the key people were myself, Arthur Mbalule, and Valence Bismana. So we sat and said, look, why don't we organize this? So USRA was born by those three, Budo, the Budo patron, SMACK patron, and Namilyango patron. And eventually now we sat, and then that's how we gave birth to USRA. And the idea was, let's organize ourselves into something that can then sell this brand, because the brand was already there. We just needed to organize and then get it visible. And of course now eventually after we organized it, we then became a voice that the union had to listen to. I remember Andrew Winyi, who was by then the chair of Uganda Rugby Union. When I first requested that we have representation on the union, he objected. But then eventually after he discussed with his people, he realized now we had become a voice.
Okay.
So that's how USRA takes off.
Now that you guys actually created something like that is focused on schools rugby, of course there have been sentiments across, how so many conversations can go around rugby, that maybe in one way or the other, these particular people were putting certain rules to perhaps favor the schools that they run. There are people talking about maybe some players being objected from playing, while maybe some schools are getting favorism. What do you have to say about maybe some of those things?
Yeah, I've heard that. During my tenure as chair of schools rugby, I was accused of boardroom politics. It's something that used to be mentioned a lot. But the moment you take up a leadership role, I saw Godwin here on this podcast, and I saw him respond to accusations. I've been in the union, and I know when you're there, people feel so comfortable to accuse you. It comes natural. And fans are a complicated set of people. When things are good, they look for something to accuse you for. When things are bad, they rightly accuse you for that. But it's not true that the boardroom politics thing and the favoring of the top schools is not true. And I'll give you the facts. When I became chair of Uganda Schools Rugby Association, that's 2007, 2008, rugby was played by 12 schools in the whole country.
Okay.
Now, my immediate concern was sponsorship. And I remember sitting with William Blick, who was coming in as chair. He had launched his bid to take over the union. And he came to me and I said, if you want my support, I need the following. You will support me get sponsorship. You will get us a seat at the table at the URU. And when he said yes, I remember I had to run because I knew you can't get a sponsor unless you're a brand that is visible.
True.
We traversed the country. We moved the number of playing schools. I'll never forget that. Between 2007 to 2008, we had moved from 12 to 24 schools. Between 2008 to 2009, we had gone to 64 schools. And by the year 2010, as of July, we had moved to 141. And this included schools in northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, western Uganda, and of course the greater central Uganda. So it's not true. If we were selfish, we wouldn't push rugby to go beyond. All these schools, people are not aware that the Lango College beat Namiliango in a league. Lango College in a league, 12-5. You know, an up-country school. It's today, if you say that, everyone will be like, what? But
in that year, who won the trophy?
That was
Who won the trophy?
No. That is the year SMACK won it.
In 2009,
It
yes.
was 2009.
Yes.
We must have sent Form 2s.
Whatever it is,
Must
they
have
were
been.
wearing a Namilyango jersey.
What
Yeah.
I know is that the captain, Kafumufu, was there. So whether you sent Form 2s, So,
Yeah, so just on that particular thing of sponsorship, when I joined, or around the time when I was actually starting to really get particular interest in the game, there was Coca-Cola, and I felt like Coca-Cola was really doing a lot for schools rugby. What happened? What happened for us to lose such a sponsor? Because it feeds into the greater picture of sponsor retention in rugby in Uganda. Why is it that we lost Coca-Cola, and why is it on a general scope that we lose so many sponsors as a sport?
yes, before I can answer the question of how did we lose Coca-Cola, we have to first answer the question, how did we get Coca-Cola?
Okay.
Because how we got Coca-Cola explains how we lost Coca-Cola.
Okay.
We got Coca-Cola because, one, we got organized as schools. But most importantly, and I'll repeat this, we had the absolute support of the union. You see, and I think even clubs must have experienced this, any sponsor does not want to deal with an individual. And this is what is failing clubs or even associations like schools to get sponsors.
Okay.
Any sponsor wants to deal with the main organ. The main organ. If somebody has money to put into rugby, schools rugby, they want the idea that they are sponsoring Uganda Rugby. Now, the union must stand with you for you to go and get the sponsorship. And that's how we got Coca-Cola. When we got organized, we got our documentation, our constitution, we registered USRA, we got a bank account, and we got legal identity. I went to William Blake because we had an agreement as he was coming. People think I was William Blake's blue-eyed boy. You've heard that. They say I was William Blake's blue-eyed boy. I remember these stories in red paper of Blake's blue-eyed boy and so on. It wasn't like that. The relationship with William was an agreement. And because of that agreement, William had no choice but to stand with me. And we went together. We looked for sponsors together. And that's how we got Coca-Cola. And the original sponsorship of Coca-Cola was lower. By the time people got to know of the 400 million, they had given us a target. If you hit 100 schools, we give you this amount, 400,000. 400 million. They gave us the 400 million because we had it, and they wanted evidence, and we gave them the evidence. We would go for all these national tournaments across. I would move. In fact, I wasn't teaching in SMACK. I was just always on the bus going somewhere in the regions. And then they told us, if you can add and go to 150 schools, we add you another 100 million. So at the end, we had 500 million. But so how we lost Coca-Cola is because of what then happened. The new URU regime felt schools can no longer be at the table. And that's the reason actually why I left USRA. Because I didn't see the school game survive if you don't have schools on the URU. And up to today they are struggling. I've seen some initiatives. I've seen Ramsey Olinga and a couple of other people. They are running around schools. They found me in Entebbe, and Ramsey is a good friend of mine. He said, Ronnie, you have the expertise. Come and help us go back in these schools where rugby has been kicked out. I told him, Ramsey, there is nothing you're going to do until you get schools back to the high table. And I say this to everyone. Schools cannot recover until you have them as key stakeholders on the URU table. It's that simple. No sponsor can put their money. No sponsor. Coca-Cola can't put money in schools headed by Mutebi. They will ask you, where is the union? You have to be with the URU president. It has to be, they put the money on the URU account. So for them, in their records, we are sponsoring Uganda
Rugby.
Not schools. Kati ebyo biba byammwe, that is yours, kila kintu down there. That now schools you have 400 here. So that is...
In the many things that you've talked about, a name has come up in particular. Mr. Bizimana Valence, the equally famed patron or former patron of Namilyango College, whom you guys shared a lot of moments with during, of course, your time, him, Namilyango, you, SMACK. What's your relationship with him, or what was your relationship with him?
Our relationship was two ways. On the field, on the pitch, in the game, we were enemies, arch rivals. I remember times when Valence would not even return my call, when he would not even say hello back. There would be that time, the week when we are going to play a final, or the week after they've lost to SMACK, or I have lost to them, used to be tense. But off rugby, we were very good friends, still very good friends. We used to grab a beer together. We used to chat. You remember, we were in the same executive of schools. He was at first my vice chair, and then eventually he was my treasurer. We used to sit to make decisions for schools together. So we were friends, and we remain friends. And because I taught in Namilyango, when I would be in the staff room, he was my default friend. Like when I come, he's like, man, Chichi, what's up? You guys, who are you playing this weekend? So we used to have that collegial relationship off rugby. But in rugby, it was bloody. At times when you've lost to Namilyango, you don't want to see his face for some time. Yeah.
Caesar, just to bring you into this particular one, of course, you have experienced rugby in SMACK rather. You couldn't have experienced rugby in Namilyango, of course, but under Mr. Mutebi, and for a few moments recently, you've also been trying to go back to SMACK to see what's going on. What are some of the similarities between that time when you were there as a student and now, and also some of the differences in SMACK?
The biggest difference was SMACK rugby had utmost support from the administration, utmost. We had an HM, we had a patron who loved the game. He wasn't a SMACK teacher taking a SMACK team to a game, but was a rugby fanatic who loved SMACK rugby, but a SMACK teacher. You get? And because of what he did, and because of the story he told us, how he was pitched, how Brother Bukenya got him to do this business, Brother Bukenya supported rugby. Now, there was a time rugby had the most intelligent people, some of the most intelligent kids, but because you were superstars, we are talking about Didi now. every time you become a superstar, Ivan Magom, there's always chaos that comes around you. And that superstardom gives you, so you would find rugby players don't want to wear ties. Rugby players don't want, they're just big-headed. I mean, I'm Caesar.
Hotheads.
Hotheads. So we'd always have those clashes in with the administration, and you find Mr. Mutebi struggling in S5 to get. I mean, the Milyango benefited from hot-headed rugby players in SMACK because everyone who didn't make it to SMACK ended up in Milyango. I can write a list, and every name I will mention became a rugby legend in Milyango. So it's that kind of thing. But our HM, even with all those hot-heads, our HM loved rugby because of Mr. Mutebi. That is the biggest difference there is in SMACK. We struggle a lot in SMACK with rugby because one, the administration, maybe the new one was the current HM, current brother, he came to SMACK when we were there as a teacher, a student teacher. So he knows a tad bit about rugby then. But the one who was there before, oh my God, he knew nothing about rugby. And you can't fault him. He didn't, no. And we didn't have that teacher in SMACK who would try and bridge the gap between the students and the sport with. That's the biggest difference we have. There's no individual. And even the patrons in SMACK right now in rugby, it's apart from Mr. Nanyenya now is the one trying to pick up the love and to follow. But we have a patron who is a school teacher in charge of rugby. So he will do the administration work. He will not care. We had a patron who was a school teacher, who was a rugby fanatic, who was a rugby coach. So you get, that's the major difference. The love and the enthusiasm still there. In our time, we never went on strike for rugby. These days, kids can go hunger strike if the administration refuses.
I heard about that.
Yes, they refuse to eat
did.
because they refuse them to play rugby, and the HM didn't have anything to do about it. We have S6s, which means something would never accept. We have S6s going for EA games.
It would never happen. I would never
You
allow
get,
that.
but it's just the fanatism is there. But that administration, the bridge, which is the biggest issue, if you ask me, and which Mr. Mutebi is ably trying to bring in the union to curb, the relationship between the sport and the kids with the administration and the parents. There's a big gap. And in schools rugby, once that gap is not bridged, you're wasting your time. Because the teacher will come and say, we have mocks. We had teachers, he can tell you. We had teachers, some died, some are still alive, who would ensure that S5s are going to play a sevens tournament in Milyango this weekend. Then he puts a test.
Yes,
a crucial
deliberately.
test. Deliberately.
Yes.
To block rugby.
To fight it.
It's just, there are teachers that don't see the sense in sport. So if you don't have that bridge, which I think is the biggest difference and the biggest kudos to Mr. Mutebi, that bridge that helped us to be in sync. Of course, there were battles they couldn't win, big-headed players hot-headed players that couldn't come back. As I will tell you, one of my memories of Mr. Mutebi was trying to bridge that gap of hot-headed, but I'll talk about it later. Anyway, so for me, that's the difference. And I think it's affecting all other schools. The fact that there's a gap between the boys and the game and the administration, the school administration and the parents. Because if administration support a sport, the parents will definitely, because they will talk about it. But if the administration doesn't support, the parents will say, why are our kids not reading? So I think that's the difference for me.
Yeah, I think maybe just to bring you back into this one now, what he says is something that is very, very common. I know in my year in particular, we had so many guys that were even told by the time they finished their Form 4 that even if you got 7, let's say 7 in 8, you're not coming back. Even if you got 8 in 8, you're not coming back. So how would you handle these cases of, let's say, I want to call them overly enthusiastic, because I don't want to term them as maybe indisciplined or what, although it might be the case, but let's use the word, or the words overly enthusiastic. Students who are rugby players and the administration, how would you curb that? Because I'm sure the brother or the administration would come to you, Mr. Mutebi, these are your boys. Because that's the same thing that would happen to Mr. Bizimana. So for you, how would you handle that?
Now, you've got to go back to that issue I raised earlier. rugby is different from football, and I want people to appreciate that. We cannot, the rule book for football can never apply. I argued this when I was still in schools rugby with my team and the URAU. The rule book of football, of basketball cannot apply in rugby. Rugby is so different in so many ways. For example, whereas a kid would be so happy their son playing football, they would even put them in a car and take them to the academy, Edgar Watson Academy. Parents are by default against their kids playing rugby.
Yeah.
And this, you need to appreciate that. Now, when you know that, now when the parent is against the sport, the school is even worse. The teachers, they feel like you are introducing barbarism in the school. There are teachers I know, some are still living, some may their souls rest in peace, who in the beginning they hated me because they felt I was promoting thuggery. One of them actually told me that she's departed. But by the time she departed, she was a converted soul and she loved me. And she was now one of the crusaders of the sport. So all these people do this because they've not understood the game. This is why I say, at my time, we came up with a plan with my team. And I went to the union, I said, you know what, we need to convert. We need to do a conversion from top to down. And what we did, I said, head teachers must come and understand the game. Once the head teachers have understood, let's bring these senior teachers within the school to understand the sport. And then let's bring the parents to understand the sport.
Yeah.
We used to organize what was called the rugby dinner. I don't know whether it still happens.
USRA dinner? No.
Leave alone the schools.
Yeah.
There used to be the URAU dinner.
Yes, that one happens.
And it used
where
to be,
they give awards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It used to be organized as a posh event where they would go to Sheraton, these top hotels, and then they give awards. I told William, you know what? I'm struggling with head teachers and schools. Give me coupons for these people. Let them come and see the rugby family. Let them understand who we are. We ain't thugs like they're thinking. People who have played rugby like Adrian Bukenya. Let these people come and meet Adrian Bukenya and get to know that this was a captain of Namilyango. He captained the national team. Let them meet him in his capacity now as an employed, successful personality so that they can change their perception towards the sport.
Yeah.
I had that blessing from the union, and I would bring these head teachers. At first we did the Super 8 head teachers. Eventually we rolled it out to all other head teachers. I would bring them to Sheraton. Some of them had never been there, incidentally. And then when they would come, they meet all these personalities, they hear the speeches, they interact with the rugby fraternity. They are converted, slowly converted. Then we would invite them for these national games, like Uganda is playing Tunisia. We give them tickets and we ensure they come. I would be in charge of their hospitality. They sit with us, they see the game from a different angle. Brother Bukenya, for example, those experiences changed him completely. Brother Bukenya became the #1 rugby head teacher in this country. The things Brother Bukenya did, I can't even begin to tell you. Like he was telling you, teachers would put exams, and I would just call him. He said, Ronald, you can call me anytime, even if it's at midnight. I was the only teacher in SMACK who could talk with the head teacher, even at 1 in the night. I called, brother, the program has changed for tomorrow. I think we have to travel to northern Uganda. And immediately calls the bus and make funds available. The team is going to northern Uganda. He calls the driver, prepare the bus, the guys are going. Just like that, because he was converted. When that goes away, the next head teacher who came, then Aganyira, brother Aganyira,
yes.
Nobody took the initiative to induct him. So people have been so, SMACK old boys and SMACK fraternity were pissed with that head teacher. But I wasn't. Me, I was pissed with the union. I was pissed with the union because this is your key stakeholder. Is going under. SMACK is a key stakeholder in Uganda rugby. It is your duty as the union to get a delegation, go to SMACK and say, brother head teacher, what's going on? Bring this head teacher into the SMACK fraternity. Let them understand who we are. Convert them. Slowly convert them. When they are converted, Mr. Muguluma of Namilyango, students may not have been aware, he was hard on rugby in the beginning.
Yeah, he was.
On Valence. Valence, one time I remember he nearly lost his job because students misbehaved when the bishop was in school. A bishop had come to visit, and then
those bishop visits were crazy.
And Valence
No
called
jokes.
me and said, man, my job is going. What we did was simple. We had a delegation visit Muguluma. We got influential Namiliango Old Boys to go and visit Muguluma, discuss the issue. We apologized. Now, see, it's no longer Valence. It is URU. We apologized. We said this will never happen. We will make sure that in the future we take such activities out of the school, not to interrupt. And the issue went away. So the URU has not done that in a long time. So head teachers are not converted. Now, when they are not converted, let me tell you, Caesar can go to SMACK 1,000 times. He can't change influence. These guys are hard.
They're hard.
Like the Catholic brothers, they are very hard. If they say X is X, you can't change it. Even when you're a minister, you can't. But you can convert them, win them over. The guy now, Brother Mpanga, is a guy who is actually a good friend of mine. Actually, people are not aware. There was an attempt by SMACK to take me back to SMACK after a long time. But of course, it was too late. I had already matured and I had moved on to other things. But he's a good guy.
He's a good
very
guy.
good guy and loves rugby. Now, you take this opportunity to convert him further. But that's the job of the URU. Not individuals going as you yourself, Caesar, going to the head teacher. You don't carry weight. But if you get like this, the URU, Honorable Jock, who's now a VP. You get Godwin, the president. Get a huge delegation. Get some OBs. Throw in William Blake, a former chairman. Visit and say, we have come to check on rugby. You know, you do that PR thing, praise him. You've been very instrumental in the development of the sport. They get converted.
Okay. So, of course, we are still at the Gardens in Nigeria. A very, very serene space, as I always say. One where you can just have, especially going into a particular weekend like this one, enjoy your drinks, come with friends, family, loved ones, and all, and just enjoy the drinks. Lots of food available as well, different theme nights, and for specific nights like this particular weekend, when we are shooting this, there's going to be the East Africa Meat Carnival, which happens every last Saturday of the month. You can look out for it. East African variety of meats and different kinds of foods, plus East African music as well. So also not forgetting Nile Special as well, our partner that always helps us to push rugby in this country. Of course, the best friend of rugby in the country. And we do appreciate them for their efforts in helping us, as well as the podcast, to be able to bring these candid rugby conversations to the people. The state of rugby in general now, moving away from age grade. Of course, age grade ties into it, but looking at the state of rugby in general, what are your thoughts? Let me start with you, Caesar, on this one.
I feel like
consider different aspects. Consider the marketing of the game, its growth, the players, the clubs, the national team, the general state.
surprisingly, I feel like the marketing we're not doing so badly. You might think we are concentrated in the I want to feel, people will say that I ate. I want to feel that the current
Did
union,
you eat?
the current union in its
Did you
second term.
eat?
They've done second term? Yes, second term. They've
Yes.
done quite a lot. The decision, I don't know whether it's this current union. Yes, it is. The decision to change into a 2-day circuit, for example, of the sevens tournament and take it to different countries, to different parts of the country. Well knowing that it will be a very big injury both to the clubs and the union. It's visionary leadership, I want to believe. It's visionary leadership and it is helping with the marketing of the sport. Now, the biggest struggle with our sport is it staying at amateur level. Is it staying at amateur level? I feel like for us to take that leap, because we have a lot of players. First and foremost, I support what Ms. Mutebi said. We badly need a university league, not because it will weaken the championship. What is it called? The championship.
Yes.
Championship. Yes. It's not weaken championship. It will just allow everyone else who's not good enough, like Justin Chimono, like Ivan Magom, not good enough to go straight from school, to keep up those players playing together and enjoy. And now we have people playing touch rugby. Every university all of a sudden has like a place where they play touch from. Good Friday, there's Good Friday touch at Kings Park. There's Friday touch everywhere. In Makerere it was there. I don't know about, but guys play because they love the sport, but they are not yet at the level of that competition at the high level. So I feel like the competition, the development should not be just because we have a very good 7th team and the 15th team is doing well and we're hosting. Let's not get complacent that the development is good. It's not. We need to do a little bit more to increase the number of players. We don't have players in the league.
Okay.
We struggle right now. We struggle to name 6-7 front rowers for the national team. If ready players. Now, surprisingly, Mr. Mutebi, we use the national team to blood players. We are playing a kid. We will get kids to say, let him play in the setup so that he grows into. This is the national team. This is the national team. Even in these international teams where we get players that are young, they are playing on. I want to believe Kamiza Jones jumped onto the national team because he had a stellar season. I want to believe. I don't watch so many Pirates games for obvious reasons, but I feel like I feel like we should do a little bit more development. And lastly, my biggest point, Mr. Mutebi has been talking so much about what the union needs to do to beef up schools rugby or revive it, which for me is my biggest love, my biggest down of this current administration, and indeed the one before of Andrew War. I don't know why, in their wisdom, and these are wise, intelligent men and women, I don't know why they neglect schools rugby. I just don't understand. It's a crime. It's a crime. Schools rugby is the foundation of Ugandan rugby. How we are neglecting it is playing. How you find Echemon, the current chairman of USRA, you find him struggling to get. It's unbelievable. You find union officials coming only on the final game. If Fat Cats didn't go to publicly publicize the final, I don't want to say it's because of us that the numbers came, no. But tell the people. Now we have a bunch of OBs calling me, Caesar, we need to talk to that coach. How can SMACK lose 3 consecutive finals? People who didn't even care what was happening in rugby in school. You get, we need to do something more to beef up schools rugby and bring back, we had Super 8s. We have other teams that were playing, other 8 teams that are playing to qualify. Yeah. I feel like we should do more for schools rugby. But lastly, union needs to help clubs get sponsorship. It's high time, and clubs need to stop fighting the union. You see, you can't fight the leader of a sport. The leader of a sport is the owner of a sport. No one, we try to get sponsors. No one will speak to a sport unless they're speaking to their leadership. The owners and the union are the owners. Let's stop this bickering. Union is eating our money. The sponsor is eating. Let's get to the table. Cobs wants to go and be sponsored by MTN. Why shouldn't 2-3 union members come and say, let's go? Honorable joke. We'll go with Cobs. I say, okay, let me talk to Pirates because he's a Pirate. If Pirates wants to get another...
I think he has a bigger picture.
Yeah, he has a bigger picture, yeah. So if Honorable Joke comes and says, hey, Cobs, you want to talk to MTN? Let's go. Recently, we're in Parliament and we had a discussion with the MTN CEO, and he's looking into developing the country. Let's go and see. You get. But if he speaks as the vice chairperson of the union, if Godwin speaks as the union president, we have this club. It's part and parcel of our union, but clubs are hustling on their own, and most clubs don't have home grounds, which is one of the biggest source of sponsorship mileage for any. So we need to sell some other things, and the union needs to help. So for me, the state of the rugby, I think it's going down a bit because we're not caring enough for the development of schools first and foremost, then after schools, the university league, and then the clubs need help because rugby is very expensive. Rugby is extremely expensive. Traveling, carrying 30 people across the country. That's how I feel for schools. Schools are very rich, man. Taking a guy to Komboni, then tomorrow you're in Namiliango. The other day, man, it's crazy. So for me, that is it. We need support, but so far, there are certain things that are working. I'm telling you, there's certain things that are working. I'm happy with the administration. Of course, they can't do everything. They have to be reminded. But the administration is doing some good things. Rugby is being marketed there. We have tournaments left, right, and center. I think we are doing well. We are hosting the most important tournament, which is next year, which is the
Brilliant.
qualifier.
Brilliant.
A big chance for Uganda to
Even the work they did with
even
this
the work
other
with
one.
this one,
Oh,
brilliant.
fantastic.
Even when people complain about the washrooms, the food, it's okay, it's okay.
It's okay.
The fact that we're even complaining about them is good because they were there in the first place.
No, they did a good
They
job.
did a very good job, and they're doing well. So let them keep. Unfortunately, I hate democracy. After this tenure, they are gone, and another team will come, and they will do their own thing. Me, I don't like democracy, man. Dictatorship develops things.
Your thoughts on that?
Not on democracy.
Your thoughts on the state of rugby?
For me, I would like to start with appreciating the current team. I'm always a very critical person, and some people don't like me for... I speak my mind. I'm not a guy you will influence. Even if you're my friend, I remember William Blake was my very good friend, but we used to have fights, Blake and I. So me, I'll always speak my mind. If I don't like it, I don't like it. And I'll tell you why I don't like it. But for the current team, I'd like to say I'm so happy with the way they have tried to bring us back. They have resurrected the game. I'll tell you this, they have brought us back from a hole. We had sunk in a hole. And the hole we had sunk in, and I'll be honest and candid here, Andrew Wall and his team took us into a hole. And it was because they refused to listen when people advised. It goes back to the reason why I stepped aside from USRA suddenly. It was because I had a meeting with Andrew Wall, and it was specifically on schools, his agenda for schools. I had the experience in schools. By then I had experience of over, was it like 12 or 14 years? I knew how it works. And I sat with him to advise. And he made it clear. He said to me, I'll never forget his words, Ronnie, we're taking another direction. That's what he said to me. You know, you have come to build the sport. You don't go against the people who have the experience in that area. And I told him, look, if we can't do A, B, C, D, which I feel will work, personally, I want you to enjoy your term. Let me not be an obstacle. I stepped aside. And I watched now the game from outside. And I saw everything I advised him. I saw it happen. I saw us start to sink. You see, when you sink the brand of rugby, sponsorship will go with it. It's by default. If Cobbs is playing very well, everybody wants to be on their shirt.
Yes.
Everybody. So if two people come and they want to be on Cobbs' shirt, then Cobbs will negotiate for a better deal. But people are not going to come for Jinja Walukuba in the league to say, I want to be on your shirt. If they're not playing very well, they will get mediocre because they're helping you. It's a favor. So when the brand of rugby went in a hole, everything went with it in the hole. So the current administration of Godwin has done a fantastic job pulling us out of that hole. However, there is still a lot to be done.
Yeah.
I thought I should start from the positive. Godwin has done a good job when it comes to marketing, to resurrecting the brand of rugby. He's done an excellent job. He's done an excellent job in terms of visibility of the sport. It had died. We're now getting numbers. Now people are interested in games, national team and so on. Government is interested and so on. But now there are those things that went in a hole that he needs to pull out. And one of them is edge grade. He has to pull out edge grade. I watched 3 games last 15 season. I watched Pirates Cobbs at Kings Park. You remember that game where Casito, I think, got a card and got irrational. There was fracas. Actually, I realized my son was losing his head. I had to come in. I think the decision by the referee was very, very unfair to him. And, tempers went up. I saw him fight with everybody. I was with William Blake, and I think I was with Godwin. I ran behind, and I calmed him down. He had gone volatile. So I watched that game. And I've watched the game Pirates Mongers in Entebbe. I also watched the game Pirates Heathens. And I'm telling you this, the standards, the levels have gone down. People might not want to accept. You see, there are many ways of looking at a game. When you're watching a game, there are fans who watch to see the tries get scored, then they cheer, Pirates has won. There are those fans.
COVID funds.
Yeah, for those of us who have a technical aspect in the game, if you've coached the sport, when you're watching a game, you're watching lots of things happening within there. I watched and I even remember telling William, I said, William, the standards are down, very down. He said, I agree. You know, basic mistakes that I would never even expect at a school game. You know, handling mistakes. When Pirates is playing Cobs, that is top tier rugby. It has to be top tier rugby. But when you see, you know, small mistakes like handling errors, you know, decision making at the ruck, you know, offside, you know, that these stupid offsides, like a player just tackling somebody from the ground, being offside at the breakdown. And I said, this can't be happening at this level. It's not for that level. The decision making, you know, the panic when you're in the 22, you know, that discipline in the 22. The standards are down. But it's not the fault of the clubs. It is the players they're getting. You see, at club level, you don't do basic training. It would be ridiculous. If a coach of Cobs started coaching ball skills, it's ridiculous. That is done before you get there. So it means these players came to get to that level with poor basics.
Yeah.
And where did they come from? That's where the problem is. So if the state of rugby today is we need to get the age grade out of the hole it is. This idea, I've had these things, tag rugby. Tag rugby is just, it shouldn't even be in the setup of the union. Tag rugby. It's not, I wouldn't even promote it because what is it we're promoting? This is what we do as you and I when we go to the beach, when we want to just have fun. But schools rugby, you know, we used to have this those Naguru kids had programs that were very serious at Chadondo. They would come there and play. I remember them requesting me to participate in the school's league, and I allowed them to play an under 14 and under 16. Actually, one of them won an under 16 tournament. Those are the things the current administration has to pull out. You pull them out so that when they're out, then you can now get us all back to the same level. The other one and the last one is emotions. There's too much emotions currently.
Okay.
The emotions, you know, when you become a leader, you see there is a difference. Right now I can criticize, and I've been doing that. I know some people are going to be pissed with what I've said and so on, because I'm just a fan. Are you getting that? But way back, I could never even agree to sit on this podcast. If I did, I would be very careful what I do, because when you are a leader, when you're in management, you control your emotions.
Okay.
Caesar has said something terrible, okay? It's terrible. Find a way of sorting it out without publicizing it and making it a big mountain out of a small hill. So the current executive, their emotions, I've seen the Magomo issue, and I realize their emotions. You need to rise up above this. They will abuse you. Let me tell you, fans will abuse you. I would walk on the Kampala Rugby Club. There used to be this lady, Mama Cobbs. Oh my God. Oh my God. One time I was with my daughter, young daughter, and then the chick just came and said, Mutebi, you were thug. You were thug. You know? And then my daughter said, what have you done to her? I said, it's just rugby issues.
Daddy, bitch.
I would walk onto the Namiliango pitch, and then the kids will all, in chorus, start to sing, Mutebzi, you were thief. Mutebzi, you were thief. Now, you don't come back at USRA and then cause a DC to discipline the fans of Namiliango. As a leader, you know those things will happen. Walakira pushed me. Walakira, I was school's chair. And I was a member of the URA. I was very influential during that time. I was, like they said, I was close to Bleak and the team. I would have pushed that through. Walakira pushed me. And I just laughed it off. I laughed it off because as a leader, you control your emotions. Currently, emotions are not controlled. You know, Ivan Magomo does something wrong, and then you become so emotional, and then, you know, we are all I'm seeing in the press I follow. Those are emotions. That one was a small hill.
How was that situation supposed to be handled? How best could it have been handled?
Ivan Magomo is a hothead. We've been talking here. Hotheads have an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that adrenaline pushes them to do wonderful things, hotheads. Their disadvantage is they will always, 10 out of 10, they will say things before they've thought about them, hotheads. So, because they make good players, we need them. But because they normally pour out before they've thought, we must learn to contain them. When Ivan made those statements, I went back. I think it was Caesar who sent me the transcript. I said, Caesar, I want to see what Ivan said. And he sent it to me, I read it. One, it was wrong of Ivan to say that because he's accusing a key stakeholder of Uganda Rugby. Government is very nice to us currently. We don't want to be seen as if we are antagonizing with them. However, what was said was not like shooting a person to death. Red Pepper, there used to be a platform called Rugby Fan Zone. I don't know whether it's still around.
Still there.
Yes.
UG Rugby Fan.
UG Rugby
Yes.
Fan Zone, yeah.
I don't know whether you know the original owners and the original people.
Everyone knows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I know.
I mean, we're not going to
We're
mention
not going
that. Yes. Now, you know the original owner. Now, when we were in the union, Rugby Fan Zone had us for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. Actually, even they had us for a drink in the night. Just stories. How we have stolen money, how we have done ABCD, and they would mention by names. I have articles, I screenshot them, I have a good record, a good collection of records of what happened. And we would sit with William and all the other guys, David Case and all the others. We would sit and we say, guys, there's this story, and we say, just let them, leave them. When it would go so far, I remember William going to talk to Godwin, said, Godwin, what is up? You are going to scare the sponsors. Is it what you want? And I remember him saying, you know.
It's so ironic.
But you see, at the time, we knew fans will have emotions. It's okay. Are you getting that? And we would sit with them. It's only when we would see them cross the line, we would sit and talk.
Yeah.
But we never meted out, these huge punishments. Red Pepper, there used to be a guy called Katongole who would just want to do, what Red Pepper does best. So now when I saw this issue, I thought, in my opinion, you asked the question, how would it have been handled?
Yeah.
Ivan should have apologized and withdrawn the statement. After that, there are many punishments. You see, the whole idea of punishing, I like how the Americans call it correctional facility, not prison. The idea is not to kill you. The idea is to rehabilitate.
Yeah, rehabilitate.
The current coach of the national team had issues of indiscipline, Fred Mudola, during our time. And some people said he should be banned. Other people said all sorts of proposals came. But in the end, William decided and said, William and a couple of other guys said, no, let's rehabilitate him. We need him. He's still delivering. Don't kill his career. And I remember the punishment was a funny one. They made Fred referee school games. Fred Mudola. It was humbling because he had abused the referee. Are you getting that? Now you go and call games and then they abuse you. And Fred Mudola that whole season was reffing school games, reffing school games. So there are better punishments. So the 6 months was, for me, was not okay.
Do you think anything in what he said was justified? Because he talked about maybe delaying payments. He talked about maybe some of the money that were promised not coming through, things like that. Do you think there was any merit in what he said?
I was in the union, and I'll tell you this. And I know Godwin and his team also spend nights on this. Money will never be enough. It will never be enough. I'm telling you. Outside, you guys will hear these guys got 2 billion. But of that 2 billion, these guys have actually got 600 million. But of that 600 million, they have debts. Debts. Like huge, debts, debts which are at a point of where they're coming to mortgage, to attach some of the things. And you do a priority. They struggle with all that. But what needed to be done was you sit with the players. Okay. You sit with them. Don't send anybody. You call them. You sit with them. Adrian Bukenya was very vocal on player welfare during his time. Very, very vocal. I remember William one time saying, "Oh my God, this guy is killing me." Because the guy would demand for allowances. And that generation of players were really, really, not the Magomu level. These were serious guys. But the issues would be that William would go and meet them. And I think even Godwin has to do that. Because, and I'm on his side on this one, he must be doing his best. And money is not enough. And these guys also, they want their money. So what you do is you sit with them, you talk to them, then there are these ones there are players who are not employed. There are guys who are employed who know how to survive. But the ones who can't survive, you find a way of helping out. It will tone down. Because in the end, these guys talk, but they're so passionate about the game. They won't refuse to play the next game. Trust me, they will show up for the next game. That's how addictive rugby is. They can threaten and say all this. You talk to them and tell them, give them the real picture. But now when you get emotional and get annoyed, and then the punishment that was given to Ivan Magomu, I'll say this, and I want it on record, was unjust. It was driven by emotions, not by logic. Because if it was logic, there were better ways. Now, you punish him 6 months, he has not apologized, he has not retracted the statement. What have you done? Because I would have Ivan retract the statement publicly that I regret this. We have a press conference where the captain withdraws this statement. And even as a URU, we apologize. You've cleared your name as the union that you...
What happens if he refuses?
You see, we can't know what happens if he refuses before you've put it on the table.
Put it on the table.
Because if they had put it on the table, there are people Ivan, there are people he listens to. When Ivan was a problem in Pirates, you remember when he used to get lots of yellow cards, then at one time I think there was a red card, he was attacking referees. I remember Sam Mahamia being so pissed, and everyone was pissed at Pirates. The idea was, at this kid, I told them, calm down. Let me talk to the boy. I took Ivan aside, we had a chat. Like a whole day, we even had lunch together. We had a chat. These are young boys. They're just maturing. They're hotheads. They have a lot of energy in their head. So when you talk to them, they see the bigger picture. Ivan never got a yellow card again. And that's the time he was made captain of Pirates. And from that point on, Ivan became a different Ivan. He would never attack a referee. He would never talk back. He would walk away. He was a very disciplined Pirate. From that time, if it has come back lately, we need mechanisms where we talk to them. They're young.
All right. And my last question on this would be, you've shared a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight, and you have been there in the trenches. Do you have any thoughts of coming back in higher URU offices, positions? I know there are certain terms that are about to end. There are certain vacancies that will open up.
To be honest, I know the timing might look like maybe I'm interested in something. No, I'm not. I love rugby, and my love, it's not a love I can speak for. It speaks for itself. I want to be part of the solution, if I can. But I am not planning on any URU position or something. However, when it comes to rugby, I have heard lots of voices. Ramsey was the first, but I've heard voices from other people who have come and said, there is a lady in Entebbe who is
Regina.
Yeah. There are other people, Brian Makalama. I've interacted with people who have said, Ronnie, it's dying. You need, if you can, we can, let's... And this is me trying now. This, me coming on this podcast, this is me trying to come and say what I feel needs to be done. But in terms of coming back, yes, I will play a part in rugby, but at another level. I've told you University League is an area that is missing in Uganda. I am already having these ideas of going back into rugby, but now I want to build that. I want to be a part of how the University League can be structured. But of course also, and I've said this, the URU must show interest. It must be a priority. If terms are ending, and these guys might have had their work plan, and maybe it wasn't there, and you wouldn't blame them if they don't touch it because it wasn't in their work plan. But the guys who are going to come in, I know there has to be a group of people who are preparing work plans. That must be in the work plan. And if such people come and say, people like you come and advise us on how this can be in the work plan, I would advise. But I will come back, but in a different role, maybe in the university somewhere, promoting the sport and then build that structure for our country. Yeah.
Caesar, we had talked about some of those particular memories and incidents with Mr. Mutebi. Do you have any you'd like to trigger maybe his memory with?
Yeah, true.
Not a bad one, eh?
Some there were times, there were just a few. One of them, I have 4 actually, just 4. The first one is on a personal level. In S6, like I told you, would never allow senior 6 people to be involved in rugby, especially after schools league has ended. But we agreed as a class that we would never participate in sevens apart from our home circuit, which we had taken a bit of time without winning. We'd always lose at the finals or the semis. So our captain, now Director Ruwango, told the boys that we will only play the home circuit. The rest of the circuits, the incoming people, the Kasules will play. So at that time, because I was an assistant to Mr. Mutebi, at the time he was busy. He was really, really busy. That traveling he's talking about, he really was. He was never in school. So I told him I want to take up the team. I want to take up the team. I want to be the coach. I want to be the one guiding the team. At that time, he gave us, Mr. Katawala did the patron work because I wasn't a teacher. So I took it up. And for me, that's one of my biggest highlights of schools rugby. Like, I took this bunch of Form 5s and Form 3s and we won the sevens tournament.
Yeah.
Why I'm telling you that story is on our home circuit, we prepared and we had a bunch of our senior players, Omara, Jude at that time, and the captain himself, they were injured. So I went and told, so when I failed to play,
That was the year of Sonzi, yeah?
Yes, Sonzi.
Yeah.
So when I failed to play, I went through the
I have an issue with Nsonzi, but
when I failed to play, we went through a level of, so I was a team doctor at some point, and I became a water boy. Then I did everything.
Water boy was first.
First,
then you
yes,
became
team doctor. I went
Then
through the process
team
of
manager.
team manager. Then I started being a big head to Mr. Mutebi. On that final, Mr. Mutebi had an USRA meeting. I remember very vividly. But he had the meeting at school because almost all the patrons were around for that tournament. So the week leading to that, I told my classmates that we have to win the circuit. So those ones who have injuries speak early. So I went to the nurse and prepared for a shot, and a diclo shot. For all of them, we had a plan. We had a plan, like this one needs 1, this one needs 2. Like, we had a plan. So I went and told Omara, we need you terribly. Please come and take this shot. So they would take shot even every day for training. So he refused. He said, I'm not going to play that circuit. We begged him, he refused. So I said, fine. I went and talked to Otega. I remember that was Otega's very first circuit. I went and talked to Otega. I told Otega, come on, you're ready for this tournament, okay? So we would train, and all. On game day, Omara comes and says, I've taken a shot, I want to play. And I told him, sir, I begged you to train. You refused. Now you want to play. But he's my classmate. I can't be senior to him because we are the same level. So I went and told Ruwango. Do you know what Ruwango told me? He says, you're the coach, deal with it. I'm playing. So I came to Mr. Mutebi. Mr. Mutebi, I need your help here. My classmate is becoming a problem. I begged him to train. Then he told me he's a senior player who has trained all his years. So he knows our game play inside out. However, there's a discipline issue here. So it's your time, make the decision. And he walked away. He left me there. And I made a decision. I didn't play Omara. And we won the circuit.
So much.
It hurt him so much because we won the
much.
circuit. You get.
So much.
And for me, that built me in so many ways. And my biggest highlight, Mr. Mutebi. Second, Mr. Mutebi, like I told you, had this knack to bridge the gap between school administration and the boys. But at the end of the day, he was a teacher before he was a patron. So school has to come first. So one day, Brother Headmaster, with all his wisdom, says, no kids should leave school without uniform. We are at the gate going for Budo. There's a tournament we had Budo called Budo Gala. We had the gate and we had we were in S3. We're in S3. And we're in S2 going to S3 and the Sonys were in S3 going to S4. So these guys, he comes and tells us, Brother Master said we're not going anywhere without uniform. So go back to dorm and put on your uniform. We went. But the HSCs refused. They refused. They said they need us because there's the school team. So they need us. They felt they were special. Miss Somebody told them, if you don't change, I'm not taking you anywhere. They said, okay, let's go to class. Miss Somebody told us we go. We went and got Miss Somebody. Are you mad? Our team was going to say, we go.
Even Brother Headmaster thought I was crazy.
Yeah. We entered the car and we reached there and a bunch of those 3 guys with their class team beat Budo with Luce and Chanowira, and I was like, what the hell is happening here?
Hamia still cries about that.
What the hell is that? For me, that's a highlight. The fact that at all costs, you know, discipline came first. Same to discipline. I'm sorry. My highlight is about those values that I learned. In that year of 2009, the year we won, Calamira, Sony did something indiscipline related, and Mr. Mutebi banned him from the team. Because he banned him from the team, his classmates, Calamira, who was the captain at that time,
revolted.
They revolted. And Mr. Mutebi said they're not going to play. We ran mad. We went to Brother Headmaster.
The whole school.
The whole school went to Brother and begged Brother Headmaster. We told him, sir, Mr. Mutebi has become a problem. He's refusing our senior players, and we have a chance this year. He called Mr. Mutebi, and Mr. Mutebi spoke his mind. Until when it is us what to reconcile with Mr. Mutebi for Kasozi to come back on the team.
I remember that time, even classes, I would go to teach in a class and kids walk out.
Kids walk out. It was bad.
Really?
They walk out. Kasozi was a god at SMACK, to say the least. So that for me showed that at the end of the day, but we learned values at the end of the day. I mean, some people in that team, Kasita became the honorary captain of Tolbert Sevens team. You get people.
Kasita is a smarkist.
Really?
I didn't know that.
He is.
Okay.
But he went to set an A level.
With a very interesting story in SMACK.
Yeah. So for me, that discipline part of it. But the highlight, my most memorable, it was what I was telling you. Because of hot-headedness, all our best rugby players would end up going to schools. Mr. Mutebi was in class. A story is told that Mr. Mutebi was in class in Namilyango.
Don't embarrass me.
Teaching technical drawing to their Fanuels. And peeped in the window and saw Calamira, Halerimana, and Sony walking into Namilyango to pick admission letters.
Yes.
The class ended there.
Yes.
He put them in his car, drove them back to SMACK, and got them admission letters. That changed the tide of SMACK rugby as we know it.
Mr. Mutebi, why are you an enemy of progress?
No, but
For
this
me,
was suicide to me.
This was suicide. It was.
suicide.
So those moments
It was
for me,
survival.
those
Survival
moments to me,
instincts.
having the ability to balance, because he loved us as players, he loved the kids, but not forgetting the fact that he was a teacher. For me, that was the biggest highlight for me.
Actually, I wasn't in technical drawing, but I had that he would just come and he tells you rugby stories, and then afterwards he gives you assignments.
And see, I wasn't very good at TD. I joined TD because of rugby, because I just enjoyed stories from Mr. Mutebi and how he was planning. And man, I say this not enough. Mr. Mutebi molded the kind of rugby personality I am, if I am any personality.
Of course you are.
He molded the kind of rugby personality I am. It took me to manage impis, and it was effortless. It wasn't effortless because they later accused me of eating money.
But for me, I see you as a manager. I don't know why it hasn't yet happened. And I want you to manage that club.
We are going to make. We are going to design a
I want you to manage Cobs.
We are going to be.
I want you to manage Cobs.
We are going to remove.
Chanowira has done a good job.
Unbelievable job.
And
But like I told you,
people were doubting.
yeah, they were. But like I
Chano
told you,
has done a good
Chanowira
job
is
at
going to be
Pirates.
affected by
Yes.
democracy.
Exactly.
He's living. And all his work.
No. Democracy is
No,
okay.
no,
Living
it
is
is not.
okay.
It's
No,
not okay.
Let me tell you, living is okay because it's through living we get others with better ideas.
Well,
so it's okay.
Okay. True. But from what I've learned from my club, the recent past, and I go on record. We need to manage who comes in. We need to manage who comes in, because if you don't and leave it to democracy.
No, you don't have to manage who's coming in. We have to set systems that allow the best person to come in. I think
Okay.
for me it's about
That
systems.
is a story for
Essentially,
another
but
day.
that's a story for that. We might not end.
Anyway, so
yeah, for me that is it.
brief descriptions of these people or moments. The first one, Ivan Magom.
Me?
Yes.
Wow. When you say brief, it's hard with Ivan Magomo. But if I should be brief, special kid, best talent that has happened to this country.
Okay.
The best talent that has happened to this country. And I say that from an objective point of view. Ivan, you need to know Ivan from way back to understand Ivan today. And I'll just pick one incident.
Yeah.
Ivan is in senior 2. He's a fly-half. But at the time, we have another fly-half. So he was like the understudy of our main fly-half. Now, we are traveling to Western Kenya. We had won a Grand Slam in Uganda, 2009. We had won every trophy on offer. And the school was so happy. The chairman, board of governors, gave us a blanket check. Said, tell me what you want me to do for you as a gift. So we said, give us money to go on a tour, to relax. So he gave us money. It was open, by the way. He said, select where you want to go. So we choose to go and tour. We choose to make it rugby. We say, let's tour Western Kenya, powerhouse of Kenyan rugby, schools rugby. So we go on tour, and among the games we played on tour was Kakamega. Now, the main fly-half didn't travel. So I talked to the team. I said, guys, I'm going to play this kid. They said, no. They wanted to bring in a couple of elder guys, makeshift fly-half. I tell them I'm playing Ivan. We disagreed with the senior players, but I was in charge. And I bring in this kid. But anyway, to cut the long story short, Ivan comes onto the pitch. We half-time, Kakamega is leading 12-0. On a pitch where they have a history of never losing a game in 40 years of rugby. 40 years of rugby. They had never lost a rugby game on that pitch. It was not like our pitch here, like the Namiliango pitch or the SMACK pitch. It was like a small stadium with scaffolds.
You know that
going up,
Kakamega pitch?
with
That's a proper,
changing rooms. And they are leading 12-0 at halftime. So it looked like we're going for a whitewash. Ivan comes onto the pitch, changes the game. But everything Ivan did was contrary to what I had prepared for. It was indiscipline, tactical indiscipline. But tactical indiscipline that was getting me a 7 point, a 5 points, until the last minute. Kakamega is leading 16-15, and now they are holding on. Their ref is on, their coach is on edge, the whole school, the fans are on edge. They feel like their record is going. We had a move, I don't know whether Caesar, you remember that move called Mutebi is calling me. You remember that one?
Yes.
Mutebi is calling me was, it was a number 8 pick, number 8 picks. Ball is fed in by the scrum half, and scrum half comes to the back to pick, to drag, to draw in the other scrum half. But quickly the scrum half runs on the sides for number 8 to pick and release the scrum half to take that gap in between their scrum and their fly half, that gap, to exploit that gap. The idea was to get us any meters you can for the flankers to come and create a tunnel, like to just open up that tunnel and then we break through there. That was the move. So the fly half calls, the captain calls the move, Lubango. He says, Mutebi is calling me. So we all knew where the ball was going. Ivan did the complete opposite of what we wanted to do. I was pissed because we are in the dying minutes. They're leading by 1. We are in the 22. Rather, we were at the 10. Ivan gets the ball, just pauses, like holds everybody, and then goes for a drop goal. I was like, fuck, what is he doing? But to lift my head, it was a 3-in, and we had won the game.
Interesting.
So for me, when you say Ivan,
This is an S2.
it's Kakamega. It's 2009. That senior 2 kid.
Okay. The second moment, 2006, Namiliango versus SMACK schools final. Felix Lubega versus David Barasa. Thoughts?
Robbery. Thuggery. Anti-sportsmanship. You told me to be brief. Those are the words I use. And I would like to say here on Fat Cats, every Namiliango fan, former student, please sit in a meeting, return the 2006 trophy to SMACK for peace and harmony. That trophy belonged to SMACK. I want the members who played on that team of Namiliango that year to sit down and reflect. I know they have gone to the priest and they have repented because what they did was unfair. You know, a rack is formed and then you eye gouge. They eye gouged Felix, they eye gouged, that Barasa eye gouged the eye of Felix. And then another guy squeezed the things of who was that?
The apples.
The apples.
Wasn't it?
And then my players just ran out crying. You know, Felix was a big guy, big. Felix runs out crying. The other one runs out holding their apples. And then the ball runs, and then Lawrence Wakabi goes to score. That was very unsportsmanship. So the word I can use is thuggery. You cheated. That trophy belonged to us.
Justin Chimono.
The best talent to ever come out of Namiliango. And when I say best, I am not reserving anything. He was the epitome of quality. I always said, and I'll say it today, Justin didn't belong in Namiliango. Justin belonged to SMACK. I will be honest here. Justin, his style of play, his thinking, his discipline, his coolness of head were all SMACK traits. And if I may make a confession, I attempted to take Chimono to SMACK for Senior 5. I talked to the head teacher. It had never happened in SMACK history. We never take anyone exotics. We never take exotics, rugby exotics at A level. But brother said, if you can convince him to come, I'm okay. We had conversations with Justin. And he would have, I think his entire family had gone through Namiliango. He said, now my mother, I told him, no, we have to talk to them. Now, what I was waiting for, I wanted OBs to get me money so that his stay in SMACK is paid for. But it was late for me to mobilize that. And Justin went back. But even when he was in Namiliango, I always looked at him as a SMACKist. He's the only Namiliango guy who after a game would come to me and say, Mr. Mutebi, had luck. Or when we have won, he comes to say, that was a good one. So Justin, best talent to come out of Namiliango.
Well, we still have the trophies, but anyway.
2006, bring it back. Bring it back. No, all the others, we lost fairly. Those ones take. 2006, please bring it back. It belongs to SMACK.
2009 final, SMACK versus London College. In brackets, Sony.
That was the climax. It's the climax. It remains the happiest year of my life in rugby, but also it remains, 2009 is a testament of patience, what patience can do. We had wanted the trophy so badly. We tried in 2006 in 2004 when I just joined, I didn't coach that team. I was more of administrative work. Those guys, the Alfred Karekahos and company were just, I even feared them as a teacher. Mine was to sit on the bench. Alfred would stand in number 10 and tell me who to bring on, and then I'll do what he has told me. Alfred coached that team. So 2004, yes, Alfred, he was the captain and the coach. He would just tell me, Mr. Mutebi, bring on so-and-so. So-and-so gets out. Like that. And then I would do what he had said. So 2004, we tried and lost to Bodo. But 2006 was mine. And we really, really deserved that one. For me, in my memory, to have peace of mind, I take it, we took it. Yeah, we took it. But it wasn't given to us. Now, we had started our development program. These are kids who came to Senior 6 in 2009. And so 2009 was the climax of everything we're cooking. That's why in 2009, SMACK was invisible. It was hard to beat SMACK in 2009. Every tournament, we would just sail through because all our systems matured in that year. So, yeah, it was. And Sonny, well, that was
You
a
asked
killer.
Mr. Mutebi, the best players for me, the pinnacle of SMACK rugby, is Kasozi Steven.
He was better than his brother?
Way better. Not in what he has. The brother is a god.
No, the brother was. All of them were good in their own way.
In their own way. It's just
But Sonny was bright. Sonny was very creative. Very, very creative.
2009, it was because Dexter knocked on in the semi-finals against you. Was it
Let
you
me
guys?
tell you.
But anyway,
Kafomo Fukene, please.
Dexter could not see the ball because he didn't have
blind
glasses.
man.
Anyway, last one. Philip Okorach.
Philip Okorach is. I think Philip Okorach and Ivan Magomu share the top spot as the most complete players we have nurtured as a country in the recent past. Now, when I say this, please, I don't want to be unjust. There is a generation of players I'm not including in my analysis.
Okay.
That generation of the Adrian Bukenyas, that one. That's a generation I never even watched a lot in schools. I just found that national team I watched. So I don't want to know the guys like Edmond Tumusime. There is that generation behind it.
Yeah.
So don't mistake my analysis. It doesn't include those ones. But for the time I've been active in schools rugby and national rugby, Wokorach, Philip, and Ivan Magomo, I think, are top there. Philip was unique, and I will tell you this. Philip today plays professional rugby, but many of us, Ramsey Olinga included, we had seen this. It would happen because of one thing. Philip was the most disciplined player I've ever seen in schools rugby. Disciplined, like the word discipline in its entirety. Let me tell you why. At the time when Hannah was causing havoc for everybody, there was this game between SMACK and Hannah. And we played, and Hannah, we were pressing Hannah, we were taking them. Bijik deliberately used an elbow on my player, on the head. And Hannah, by then Hannah was captained by Musoke. They had this militaristic, kind of like Namilyango version
of rugby.
of temper. Now, when they did that, all of them celebrated that. And Philip ran to my player, tried to help him, called the medics. You know, we attended the player. He stayed there. He came to me and said, "Man, I'm sorry. This shouldn't be happening in rugby. Please forgive us." I will never forget that. I will never forget that. You know, in the Hannah of that time, there was some form of indiscipline within Hannah. But Philip always stood out as a different character. He would do his thing. He would sidestep your entire team, touchdown, celebrate, then come to you and say, "Mr. Mutebi, pole. You know, that kind of thing. So I take him up there with Ivan.
Shithousery.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah.
So, jumping into some social media comments and maybe some questions. Let me start with the quoted ones. We did put out a post on our Twitter or X, depending on how you call it.
I hope they haven't eaten me alive.
Asking people to share to leave a question, to ask a question or to leave a comment. First one was from a person called Juko Ntali. Funny how guys from other classes would fluke to attend classes that he was teaching just to listen to his rugby stories.
I said it here.
Tebzi, I stand, he says. Another person, Timo, saying, making kiddos do Masai walks. Walio Fachi.
Masai walks were not rugby related.
Yeah, they were. That's not a rugby question.
That's not a rugby
in
question.
school.
No, that
It
was
doesn't have to. You don't tell people what to ask. People will do what they want.
Masai walks behind the administration block.
Someone is asking if you stand with Magom. We have talked about that.
I do stand with him.
Someone is asking, does he still have a BlackBerry?
Is anybody having a BlackBerry these days?
I don't know.
No. I think the
I'd
BlackBerries
expect,
have the...
I'd expect someone like Joel on the other side of this thing to have a BlackBerry. He's a guy who usually has random gadgets, something like that.
I held on to them for a long time until when they were not feasible anymore.
Someone is asking respectfully, who is he? Watch this podcast, you'll understand. Going into now the replies. Where does one get a double-headed coin? Which I don't know how. Anyway, it alludes back to the other thing we talked about of the one-sided SMACK coin. The one-sided SMACK coin was something, especially we believed in Milyango.
What was that?
This is what happened every time, and I witnessed this because there's a circuit in Crimland where we played you guys in the final.
Yes.
Every coin toss that SMACK went in, they won, to the point where they were like, Mr. Mutebi brings a coin that has heads on both sides.
And ensures his team chooses heads.
And I kid you not, Crimland 2010,
Yes.
we went. Our team combined with the Justins,
Yes.
Kimonos, against you, the Kasules.
Yes, Kasules.
Final in Crimland circuit, draw, coin toss, SMACK win.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
But how I was never the referee of these games.
But you are one of the top schools guys, so probably you'd
Yes,
use. This
I
is
was-
the official coin to use.
Now, I think I've been accused wrongly. I want the referees of that time to come to this podcast and clear my name. I never interfere. But by the way, what people don't know, and I would put referees on task. I was so much interested in the quality of the school game. People mistook my passion for influence. I never.
Maybe they thought you were doing a Sir Alex Ferguson on referees, scaring them.
Okay. Maybe referees might have fear, but I don't think so. I always say to them, if this brand is successful, you're successful. If this brand goes down, my passion for SMACK never crossed the line to get into school's game. Let me give you an example, and our viewers. You remember the saga of Namilyango, where Namilyango were bad losers. You know,
They beat Budo.
Namilyango had won on the SMACK. No, wait, leave the Budo thing. The SMACK thing now. They had won. Namilyango had won in SMACK. But SMACK had never won in Namilyango. So there was this moment when we got to Namilyango, we were so charged up.
I think I've never seen SMACK win in Namibia.
Oh, we did. Actually, I'm going to send you even photos. I have photos of that day when the crowd just walked away. The game was at 35 something. We were taking you to, if they had stayed to the end of the game, it should have ended 60.
Which year is this?
I'm going to send you the photos. I think this was 2000. Was this 2010, 2009?
No, we didn't play in Namilyango in 2010.
I think it's much late, 2011.
Maybe
But
it
I'm
was
gonna tell you,
recent.
Let me tell you, there is even a cartoon.
Between 2006 and 2011, no.
In my phone, I have a cartoon where Valence is nailed on the cross, and like I'm holding a hammer, I've just put him on a cross, and I'm telling him, I'll be back for you. I'm going to show you this cartoon. It's here. Yes. So on that day, Namilyango fans assaulted me. Yes.
Sorry
And I was the
about
chair of
that.
schools. Okay. They assaulted me. Valence came to me, and they even attacked the referee. The referee actually was rushed away in ambulance because there was fear that it could get ugly. But I sat with Valence and said, look, it's just a game. If it was true I was bending arms, I would have nailed Namilyango badly. But after everything is done, I would go back and say, man, in the end, I'm the winner. Even when Namilyango won, by the way, I was the winner. Because in the end, it was the school game. The whole publicity was getting back to us as the managers of the school game. But there was no coin.
Okay.
No coin.
We will try.
No coin.
Try
no
to
coin.
believe you.
I read the still.
Tenzi.
I told him I'm going to interview. I'm going to meet Mr. Mutebi soon. Ask him about his double-sided coin.
No.
I don't believe
Let the
it,
referees
but,
come here and give my
Tenzi.
name.
Tenzi says he's great. He's mentored so many. William Bleak commented
He commented.
and said, "Thank you for developing schools rugby."
Really, Billy? That's
Yes.
sweet from Billy.
That's nice.
Thank you, Billy.
Chirunda Peter Basada says, this is a former referee,
I want to hear that one.
his reign as head of USRA has never been unmatched. We had more than 100 rugby playing schools then. The Super 8 even had upcountry schools like Lango College and Komboni College from Lira. Not forgetting that the schools league had a sponsor in Coca-Cola.
That just confirms the figures you gave.
Yes, I did. Actually, I would like to say something about Kirunda.
Okay.
Kirunda is one of those unsung heroes.
He used to come and officiate inter-class games, remember?
You leave alone officiating. Kirunda helped me a lot in terms of the technical aspects of USRA. And he did a lot of work. Actually, most of the concepts were submitting to sponsors. You only mentioned Coca-Cola. We had quite a number of sponsors. We had UHMG, Uganda Health
Management Group or Marketing Group.
Who were using that tablet. There's a tablet they were promoting. And they gave us a lot of money. Yes.
That tablet
we
that
had
you throw in water?
Yes, you remember that?
Yes.
They gave us a lot of money. We had Western Union, who gave us a lot of money. Renzori Water gave us a lot of money. We had other sponsors that were not the big ones, but kept on supporting the school game. Yeah,
That's nice.
Yeah.
And I think...
Well, Peter is still in rugby. Making noise as always.
The last one comes from Engineer Olaro. Isn't this
Oscar?
Yeah.
Oscar.
Yes. He says without a doubt. And that is just alluding to our caption that we put, which was Mr. Ronald Mutebi has had a substantial impact on rugby in Uganda at different levels and by extension the lives of many people. Leave a comment or ask him a question. So that was him saying without a doubt.
How does it make
Thank
you
you,
feel?
Oscar.
How does it make you feel, man?
No, it's
Because me, I'm overly excited. Yet I'm not.
no, it's a good thing. You know, being appreciated is very good. You know, like being appreciated, but also it puts a responsibility on me as well. Yeah,
To come back.
Because in the end, if it's not good anymore, then you didn't do a good job. You see, a good leader what you've done must stay.
True.
If what you've done dies with you, I feel that. I feel that responsibility. I feel like I think I've had a lot to do with why it has not worked. Yeah, and I apologize. I left in a hurry, but at the time I had to leave. I had to leave because I didn't want to interfere with the era of Award. I wanted him to have a good time, to have his thoughts well implemented.
Caesar,
Yeah.
in a few words, I know you're a man of many words, but in a few words, what would you like to tell Mr. Mutebi?
The good one, please.
It was a privilege, by far, privilege, to have known you, been mentored by you, watched you work for a sport you love, and in so many ways we used to have issues with me sometimes because it was very authoritative, and of course schools have their own versions, other schools of who he was or who he wasn't, but there's an adage that you never know what you have until it's gone. Your values and your views and your ideas were unbelievable, but most especially you molded me as a man, and
Thank
for
you.
that
Thank you.
I will always, I talk to you more, I think too much. For that I will forever be, grateful. And thanks for what you've done for Ugandan rugby, because even up to now, people who are holding up Ugandan rugby went through your hands. And thank you for that.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you, Cesar.
And Mr. Mutebi, what last words would you like to tell our viewers, or let's actually keep it at that. What words would you like to tell our viewers? Parting shots.
My parting shots would be rugby is a beautiful game. The Chinese have that saying, I think it was a Chinese general, I don't know who, but who said that in times of peace, prepare for war. We love rugby, and rugby is a beautiful sport. But if we aspire to go to the levels that those levels, for example, the levels, we were once better than Kenya at some point. We want to get back to that level. We were African champions, 15s. We want to get back those levels. If we want to do that, let us prepare for war in these times of peace. Let us nurture players. For me, the message is simple. It's the duty of everyone to ensure that we are nurturing the next generation. It's nice watching the current crop of players do their magic. You know, I was in Ambole and I liked what I saw. Everything was nice. But you see, the question should be, okay, after this generation, then who? After the guys we have today, then who? So my parting shots are, let's nurture the next generation. Let's go back to development of rugby. Let it be priority of all of us to ensure that the development structures get attention and they are working.
There you've had it. We have for quite a while been asked to have a SMACK edition after many SMACkies complained about the Namilyango edition. But I think it's a privilege that we've had him here. It could have gone for an entire day, but we have to do other things. There's rugby as well to be watched and played depending on what capacity you're in. But this has been particularly long, but it is worth every minute and every second. So I hope you enjoy it. Please leave a comment, please subscribe, and just please always follow the Fat Cats. Thank you for being a part of this episode. Cheers.